Chapter 55. What a clever boy. Muyaja didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This child was actually a clever one. Okay, I'll give you a raise. Coaxing a child was a piece of cake. Just like how he coaxed Xiaoyichen, he easily dismissed the little boy. Before hanging up the phone, the little boy didn't forget to take care of him seriously like an adult. Uncle, please take care of mommy. Thank you. After hanging up the phone, Yu stared at the phone in his hand. His eyes suddenly darkened. Yin Shishir didn't return home the whole night, and the little boy didn't sleep well either. He couldn't see her in the morning, so he was worried. He lied to the teacher that he wasn't feeling well, and asked for sick leave. The teacher happily agreed. In kindergarten he didn't act like he did in front of Yin Shishir. He was almost a genius with high EQ and IQ. Even the teacher was extremely surprised. What was even more amazing was that this child was not only gifted, but also mature and steady at such a young age. Although he was no different from a 5-year-old child in front of Yin Shishir, he had no intention of hiding it in front of the teachers and students. While the other children were still struggling to count to 10, he had already solved advanced mathematics questions that even the top high school students couldn't solve. Although it was unbelievable, it was the truth. In fact, although he wasn't even 7 years old, he was already a member of Mensa International. This international organization gathered almost all the geniuses in the world. It was known as the world's top IQ club, and high IQ was the only requirement to join. In the organization, Yu was the youngest, but he had the highest IQ. There were even more shocking secrets hidden behind him. However, Yu usually didn't reveal his talents because mommy liked his warm and cute side. If possible, he wanted to be mommy's little god of warmth for the rest of his life. After hanging up the phone, he frowned. Obviously, he felt that this matter wasn't that simple. This man's identity was very suspicious. After hanging up the phone, Muyaja lowered his head and looked at the outdated phone. Without looking at it, he removed the card and threw it into the trash can. He turned around, opened the door, and left. What he didn't know was that he didn't return that night, and the Mu residence was brightly lit. For the whole night, Mu Wanru waited for Muyaja to come home. But this time, she waited until dawn, but he was nowhere to be seen. At this moment, Mu Wanru was sitting in the dining room. The atmosphere was heavy. She was so angry that she wanted to smash something. The servants behind her were all trembling with fear, afraid that they would be implicated. Muyaja's concept of time was very fixed. It was already dark. No matter how big the case was, he would still go home to handle it. Only because, every night, she would accompany Xiaoyichen to have dinner, study with him, and do his homework. This was something that could not be changed. Last night, he missed the appointment for the first time. Xiaoyichen sulked the entire night. He did not do his homework or eat dinner. He was already used to Muyaja's company. Now that he wasn't around, he wasn't in the mood. Even when he went to school in the morning, he was still sullen. As for Muyaja, even if they were never husband and wife, he would at least go home on time to accompany Xiaoyichen. What was so important last night that it was even more important than accompanying Xiaoyichen? Mu Wanru's heart was twisted. In a moment of anger, she threw the glass of milk beside her to the ground. The glass shattered and scratched a servant's face. Chapter 56. Young mistress, don't be angry. Young master must have something important to do. Something important? What could be so important that he didn't return home last night? Mu Wanru was so angry that she laughed instead, the veins on her face showing. She felt uneasy, so uneasy. It was as if something precious to her was going to be snatched away from her. Mu Wanru bit her lower lip as an unprecedented sense of uneasiness engulfed her. Alcohol was really an annoying thing, not to mention to people who were allergic to it. When Yin Shishir woke up, it was already 2 in the afternoon. She opened her sleepy eyes and saw the luxurious decoration in the luxurious suite. She was a little confused and didn't know why she was here. Then her mind was blank. After a night of sexual intercourse, her mind was still in a confused state, and she couldn't recognize the scene in front of her. The side effects of the drug made her memory of what happened last night unclear. She only vaguely remembered that after drinking that glass of wine, she was drunk and lost her mind. She had completely forgotten what happened after that. After a night of sexual intercourse, her body was exhausted. But other than that, she didn't understand what happened. Why was she lying here naked? Thinking about it, she was terrified and frightened. Last night's passion, which seemed to be filled with the flames of war, had almost broken all the bones in her body. However, she still couldn't make up her mind. She subconsciously moved her body, wanting to get up. But just as she moved her legs, she felt a wave of soreness. Then there was a tearing pain in her lower body. Yin Shishir's heart skipped a beat. This feeling wasn't unfamiliar to her. This was clearly a feeling that only came about after experiencing the deed. Her gaze was a little sluggish. She reached out and lifted the quilt, but she was shocked by her bruises all over her body. Those densely packed kiss marks, as well as those ambiguous kiss marks, were as terrifying as being bitten by poisonous insects. At that moment, her heart suddenly jumped, and she was petrified as if she had been struck by lightning. In the dressing mirror, her whole face was like a cracked mask, on the verge of shattering. It was obvious that she understood what had happened to her. Although, in these 6 years, she had never done it with a man. But she was no longer the ignorant 16-year-old girl. After experiencing sex, the soreness at the base of her thighs invisibly complained to her about what had happened last night. Yin Shishir held her forehead in frustration. She tried hard to recall what had happened last night, but her memory stopped at the moment when she was forced to drink. After that, her memory was blurry and she couldn't recall anything. She only remembered the man who was called Brother Chong. Could it be him? God. What kind of trouble did she get herself into? Yin Na owed her money. Did she have to torture her just because she was Yin Na's sister? A wave of destructive despair hit her. She was tongue-tied as she opened her mouth, her shoulders trembling uncontrollably. Yin Shishir's heard a familiar voice. Yin, SSS. Miss Yin, you're awake. Startled Yin. Tease, Tiyint. Chapter 57. She saw a straight figure sitting on the sofa. She was dressed in a well-ironed business suit, and had her hair tied up in a bun. She looked like a woman. She was in a state of shock just now and didn't realize that there was a second person in the room. She narrowed her eyes, trying to see her face clearly. However, the room was too dark, so she couldn't see her face clearly. She had some impression of this voice, but she couldn't remember it clearly. She was stunned for a moment. You are. When the man saw that she had woken up, he slowly stood up and walked to the window. With a pull of his hand, he pulled the curtains open. With the sunlight shining in, the woman politely turned around. Yin Shishir finally saw her face clearly. So familiar, so familiar. She must have seen this woman before, but she couldn't remember. Secretary Li saw that she was still in a state of confusion, and didn't care about her scrutinizing gaze. She took some warm water and a small pill from the table and handed it over respectfully. Miss Yin, please take your medicine. After what happened last night, Yin Shishir was much more cautious when strangers handed her things. She stared straight at her and didn't reach out to take it. Secretary Li seemed to understand her worries and smiled. Don't worry. This is the morning after pill. I'm sure Miss Yin doesn't want to have any problems. Please take the medicine. Yin Shishir took the medicine in a daze and drank it with warm water. The medicine went down her throat and into her stomach. She was so nervous that even her lips were trembling. Secretary Li swiftly brought her a new set of clothes, including a new set of underwear. All the measurements were just right, neither too big nor too small. Yin Shishir saw it and her cheeks burned. She grabbed her underwear and stared at her uncomfortably. The latter understood and left the room. Yin Shishir then started to put on her clothes. When she opened the door, she saw her standing outside. When she saw that Yin Shishir was dressed, she calmly turned around and said to her, Miss Yin, are you ready? At that moment, her elegant smile opened up a memory that had been sealed away for a long time. This woman was clearly. Yin Shishir suddenly reacted. She pointed her finger stiffly at her, and widened her eyes in disbelief. You are. Did this woman just feed her the contraceptive pill? How ironic. 6 years ago, because of that contract, this woman was very careful in everything, no matter how big or small, to protect her child. When they met again 6 years later, she didn't allow her to refuse and fed her contraceptive pills. She didn't respond to her surprise at all. She just smiled and said, The president wants to see you. I won't see him. She immediately refused. I can't see him. I won't. It was impossible for Yin Shishir to forget this woman. On the contrary, she remembered her deeply. Although she didn't recognize her at first glance, she still remembered the secretary who had accompanied her for 8 months during her long pregnancy 6 years ago. But for a moment, there were too many doubts and uneasiness in her heart. She didn't understand why the first person to appear in front of her in such a chaotic moment when she opened her eyes was her. Then what exactly happened last night? Was it related to that man? How could this be? That's impossible. But if it wasn't because of this, then what was it? Yu. Could it be that this man knew about Yu's existence, so he came to find her and asked her for Yu back? Chapter 58. Yu. Oh my God. She couldn't let anyone take it away from her. Yin Shishir suddenly realized that it was already afternoon. If Yu didn't see her when he woke up, wouldn't he be worried about her? She subconsciously wanted to touch her pocket, but then she realized that her clothes were no longer her old ones, and her phone was gone. She turned around and wanted to go to her room to find her phone to make a call, but she was stopped by her secretary. Miss Yin, what are you? I'm going to find my phone. Yin Shishir didn't dare to mention Yu. She was only worried that Yu would be worried about her at home. Lilan smiled and took out a brand new branded phone from her briefcase. She handed it over and said with a smile, "This is your new phone. The SIM card is also in it." The phone was the latest model from Apple. It had a big screen, a fast 4G network, and a fingerprint unlock. It was worth a few thousand yuan. Yin Shishir had always used functional phones that cost a few hundred yuan. She was never willing to buy a phone that cost a few thousand yuan. For me? She took it in a daze. She didn't understand why she was giving her a phone. Yes. Your phone is broken. This is a little gift from the CEO. Please accept it. She felt strange. How could a phone be broken? She didn't expect that Muyaja would throw it away when he saw that the phone was too outdated. Yin Shishir was a little nervous. She felt that the cold phone in her hand was a little hot. She faintly guessed that the man who had sex with her last night was the CEO she was talking about. She was his secretary. If it wasn't for that man, she probably wouldn't have appeared in front of her today to feed her medicine and deal with these funeral arrangements. She had no impression of that man at all. That night, her eyes were covered by someone, so she didn't see his face clearly for the whole night until he left. She could only vaguely make out the outline of his tall figure through the hazy moonlight. He was tall, slender, and handsome. His figure was like a perfect god. However, that night was an unforgettable nightmare for her for 6 years. She forced herself to forget the 6 years of nightmares. If it wasn't for Yu, she would probably still be unable to let go. Even though she kept telling herself that everything was in the past, and that she had Yu because of that man, she still couldn't let go of the shame in her heart. So for the past 6 years, even though she had countless suitors, she had always kept a distance from those men. She didn't need men. She was already satisfied with having Yu. Yu would be her support for the rest of her life. So no matter what, she had to protect Yu. Even if that man wanted to take Yu away from her, she would not allow it to happen. However, when she heard the word CEO, she felt like she was in a dream. She froze as if she had been struck by lightning. Despite her unwillingness, she was still invited. In front of the Bentley, the door was opened for her. Secretary Li respectfully gestured for her to get in. "Miss Yin, please get in the car." In the back seat, the man sat lazily. His posture was noble and elegant, but he did not look at her. Instead, he stared coldly in front of him. His handsome side profile made him look reserved and cold, just like an arrogant emperor. However, even though it was only one meeting, Yin Shishir could still recognize him at a glance. Chapter 59. It's him. Is this the employer with a net worth of billions? He's young and stunningly handsome. "Miss Yin, please get in the car." "Miss Yin, please get in the car." "Miss Yin? Miss Yin." Li Lan invited her again, but Yin Shishir kept her head down and didn't say a word. She stood still in front of the car and didn't show any signs of moving. Li Lan walked over doubtfully and put her hand on Yin Shishir's shoulder. She felt that Yin Shishir's entire body was trembling slightly and her lips were trembling violently. Li Lan was surprised. Is she afraid? Afraid of seeing the CEO? Why, if it were any other ordinary woman, they would be shocked to see the CEO. However, she could see that Yin Shirshir was trembling. Miss Yin? She carefully pushed her shoulder as she half pushed and half forcefully invited her into the car. Yin Shirshir wanted to hide. She really wanted to turn around and run away from this satanic man. However, her legs were stiff. Li Lan's actions didn't allow her to dodge at all. It was as if she was forced into the car. She bit her lips and clenched her fists tightly as she got into the car. Bang! The sound of the car door closing. He had locked her in his world. It was as if she was isolated from the world. At that moment, she felt as if she was in an ice cellar. She felt cold from head to toe, so helpless. She was afraid. She was afraid that this man would dig out her ribs and take away her beloved Yu. Yin Shirshir was so nervous that she was trembling all over. She lowered her head anxiously and didn't dare to look up at him. Her mind was in a mess. When she first saw this man, she felt dizzy as if the world was spinning. She also felt that God was teasing her. Then, she felt an uncontrollable chill in her heart. Ow! How could it be him? The arrogant man who bumped into her that day. The man from last night, could it be him? She couldn't be wrong. Even though she couldn't remember what happened, she could smell the seductive fragrance on the man's body. The president wants to see you. Recalling Li Lan's respectful words, Yin Shirshir's heart is terribly cold. Why does he want to see her? Or was it just as she had guessed, that this man knew about Yu's existence and was here to ask her for Yu back? At the thought of this possibility, Yin Shirshir felt her vision darken, and her heart sank into the abyss of despair. There was no movement in the carriage for a long time. The rustling sound of a fountain pen rubbing against a piece of paper could be heard. The atmosphere was so tense that it was almost suffocating. Yin Shirshir's forehead was covered with fine sweat, and her palms were soaked with cold sweat. She opened her mouth, wanting to break the strange silence, but to her chagrin, she realized that she had such an intimate relationship with him, but she didn't even know this man's name, or even his surname. She closed her eyes tightly and opened her mouth in defeat. She said in an obscure voice, "President, Sir Yu." Before she could finish speaking, she was forcefully pulled by him. Her vision turned upside down, and before she could understand what was happening, she was pulled onto his body, and in an extremely ambiguous position, she was tightly overlapped with him. Chapter 60. Yin Shirshir sucked in a gasp of shock. She looked up in shock, only to meet his deep and dark eyes. The man smiled and reached out to clasp her chin, forcing her to meet his deep gaze. His enchanting and slender fingers caressed her slightly pale lips, and he heavily pressed his lips against hers, until she let out a painful gasp. He smiled again, the corners of his lips forming a sexy arc as his thin lips tugged upwards. He was wearing a well-ironed black shirt and a pair of slender trousers. The top two buttons of his shirt were slightly unbuttoned, faintly revealing the wild and beautiful curves of his muscles. He was tall and straight. Even in such a spacious space, it couldn't help but seem a little narrow. That innate imperial aura made the atmosphere in the entire car become oppressive. Yin Shirshir looked at him evasively and suddenly felt that it was a little difficult to breathe. This was her employer from 6 years ago? Previously, because she had been blindfolded, she didn't have any impression of this man. But now that she saw him, he was younger than she had imagined. Moreover, he was shockingly handsome and had a heroic spirit. However, his bewitching eyes and deep smile made her feel even more uneasy. Mu Yaja studied the various emotions that surfaced on her face with great interest. Uneasiness, fear, shock, and surprise. She seemed to be shy. But more than that, she was afraid. However, it was precisely this kind of naive reaction that made people feel that she was so cute. It wasn't that kind of pretentious. This kind of cuteness, sometimes, could make men want to cherish her. Sometimes, it made people want to ruthlessly ravage, violate, or even conquer her, so that they could enjoy her aggrieved and coquettish expression. Realizing that his gaze was getting deeper, Yin Shirshir's heart tightened, and she looked down. Her eyelashes were trembling slightly, and her eyes were somewhat flustered. Her small hands were tangled together, and she looked very pitiful. However, her expression was extremely seductive. Looking at her, he thought of last night's passionate night. Thinking of this woman's shy and coquettish manner under his body, his lower abdomen inexplicably heated up. His body couldn't help but yearn for her. He even wanted to do her ruthlessly in this car. As he thought of this, he moved and held the back of her neck. He pressed down heavily on her and kissed her soft lips. He sucked away her warm breath, and the tip of his tongue domineeringly entered her mouth. He hooked her lilac and lingered endlessly as he wantonly sucked her saliva from between her lips and teeth. This extremely aggressive kiss scared her to death. Panicking, she hastily placed her small hands on his chest and pushed him away with all her might. This only served to further ignite his ambition to conquer her. This kiss was deeper and more passionate, until she was almost unable to breathe. He finally let go of her. However, Muyaja couldn't bear to let her go just like that. Hence, with some longing, he bit her little mouth, which was slightly swollen from his invasion, and licked her lips to appease her. Yin Shirshir was a little dazed by this kiss. She stared blankly and only regained her senses after some time, her cheeks burning up. Her reaction was really clumsy. She was even stunned and didn't know how to respond. Chapter 61. He believed that even if her acting skills were perfect, she wouldn't be able to pretend to be so original. Muyaja had a playful look in his eyes. Could it be that after these 6 years, this girl still hadn't truly transformed into a woman? However, he was satisfied. At least for now, this woman's beauty was still his alone. Seemed like he was no different from a normal man. He pitied such a pure and gentle girl, but he also liked her coquettish manner last night. He chuckled and teased, "Why are you so shy?" The man's voice was mature and pleasant to the ears. It was mellow and extremely magnetic, but it made her heart skip a beat and her cheeks turn red. Seeing her like this, it was even more interesting. He smiled, but his words were even more explicit. "Last night, when we were in bed, you weren't like this." Muyaja caressed her soft waist and, intentionally or unintentionally, lifted the corner of her skirt. His big hand reached in and rubbed her smooth back, invading the city. Yin Shirshir was shocked. She hurriedly pressed down on his hand and stopped him. Don't. He looked up. His gaze was deep and dark, but there was a glimmer of light. Don't be like this." Yin Shirshir rejected him seriously, unlike other women who wanted to reject him. "That's not what you said yesterday." Yin Shirshir lowered her head in shock. Only then did she realize that she was sitting on top of him. She realized that their posture was a little too intimate. She finally retreated a little uneasily, but her waist was held tightly by his big palm. Thus this time she couldn't avoid it. Her heart sank as she said softly, "I'm sorry. Yesterday was an accident. I don't know what happened either. Anyway, if it caused you any trouble, I'm really sorry." He interrupted her lazily. "I'm very satisfied." When she looked up in surprise, there was a sky-high check in front of her. The amount was written in the column of 2 million. She looked at the bold and beautiful signature at the bottom of the check, Muyaja. Yin Shirshir was stunned for a moment. She didn't understand his intention. She smiled awkwardly and said, "Sir, what do you mean?" She was really in a mess. Why did this man give her a blank check? What did he mean by that? Could it be that he was treating her as that kind of woman? Yin Shirshir's eyes couldn't help but be tainted with a trace of anger. She couldn't wait to get out of the car right now and run as far away as possible from this man. The man's lips curled up mockingly. Yin Shirshir's doubts became another meaning in his eyes. What? Is 2 million not enough? What? Yin Shirshir was even more puzzled. Woman, are you really innocent, or are you pretending to be innocent? The man pinched her chin, so hard that tears came out of her eyes. What I'm asking is this check enough to buy you for one night? When Yin Shirshir heard this, she was stunned for a long time and did not react for a long time. Muyaja thought that she thought the price was too low. Is it not enough? He paused for a moment. His well-defined jaw looked cold and heartless at this moment. Every word of his was like the tip of a knife, cutting into her dignity. Then how much do you need to buy you for one night? A villa, a bungalow, a Mercedes-Benz. Whatever you want, just tell me. I have it all. Chapter 62. Are you mistaken? Yin Shirshir suddenly laughed coldly, her face full of anger. Sir, what do you think I am? A prostitute with a price tag? I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't want your money. Saying that, she struggled hard, trying to break free from his restraint. Her resistance, in Muyaja's eyes, became another method. This woman, could it be that she knew how to play hard to get to arouse a man's desire to conquer? This woman said that she didn't lack money, then what was last night? That man bought her for 200,000, he offered 100 times, 1,000 times more. Was that not enough respect? If you think that the price is not enough, you can just say it. Whatever you want, I will satisfy it one by one. But don't come up with such a clumsy lie. Muyaja said coldly. I don't want it. Do you think I want to go to your villa? Yin Shirshir held back her tears and sneered. What you said, I don't want it all. Keep it for yourself. Then what was last night? If you are a pure woman, why did you lie on someone else's bed? Muyaja suddenly laughed cruelly. He bought you for 200,000, I offered 220 million. It is already a great gift to you. Thinking of last night, if it wasn't for him, then what kind of situation would she have with that disgusting man? She was obviously a woman who would do anything for money, but why did she pretend to be virtuous in front of him? Gift. When Yin Shirshir heard that, she was stunned and as stiff as a rock. Last night. She already couldn't remember what happened. She only remembered that in her blurry memory, there was a man's handsome silhouette. When she woke up, her whole body was sore. She was no longer a girl. So she knew clearly what happened last night. But no matter what, it was an accident. It wasn't up to this man to interrogate her. Who did he think he was? That he was her master? Could it be that because of this accident, this man gave her an unpardonable death sentence, and believed that she was a woman who only cared about money? Or, in his eyes, she was such a lowly woman? What? Don't tell me you want me to be grateful for your favor? Yin Shirshir suddenly smiled coldly. On her pale face, the pair of beautiful and clear eyes were dim like a black jade covered in dust. So Mr. CEO wants to buy me. Muyaja calmly hugged her neck and whispered in her ear. Otherwise, why do you want to buy me? Yin Shirshir pretended to be calm and smiled. Mr. CEO, you are as arrogant as a god, handsome and elegant. You are never lacking in women, right? The smile on Muyaja's face instantly froze. His lips were tightly pursed, and there was a tinge of tension in his eyes. In the capital, his power was overwhelming, and there was no lack of beauties around him. Those who coveted his daughter from a prestigious family were even more plentiful. It was never difficult for Muyaja to choose a woman for himself. But his body was picky and only reacted passionately to this woman. Whenever he got close to her, a certain part of his body would become as hot as iron. The desire to possess her was like a raging fire, almost burning his rationality. But other women couldn't. Yin Shirshir saw that he was silent and smiled coldly. Mr. CEO, I am very expensive. Can you afford it? Muyaja smiled deeply. How much? Chapter 63. 200 million. The moment she opened her mouth, it was a sky-high price. Muyaja smiled faintly. Even if Disheng Financial Group was as rich as a country and he was extravagant, he still had to see if it was worth it. 200 million. Can you afford it? Didn't you ask me how much I want? Didn't you say that you have everything you need? A villa, a luxury car, and money? I just want 200 million from you. Can't you afford it? Yin Shirshir smiled, picked up a corner of the check, and tore it into pieces right in front of him. You're just SO. Muyaja's face was tense and frosty. Yin Shirshir did not know where she got the courage to grab the man's chin. Muyaja's facial features were extremely handsome, especially the curve of his chin. She looked straight at him and suddenly sneered. Men are so despicable. You're guarding your heart, but you want to spend money to buy a woman. Mr. CEO, don't you know that what you buy is never true? How much is your heart worth? Muyaja suddenly became interested. He found this woman very interesting and asked back. 200 million. Is it worth it? Yin Shirshir's smile grew colder. Right in front of him, she tore the check in her hand into pieces and threw them at his face. No one's heart can be clearly priced. If you want it, Yin Shirshir paused and used her fingertips to poke at his heart. At least exchange it with your here. Mu Yaja was still in a daze. Yin Shirshir suddenly pushed him away, unlocked the car door at lightning speed, opened the door, and jumped out of the speeding Bentley. Fortunately, the Bentley happened to hit a traffic signal and was not going fast. Yin Shirshir got up from the ground, covered her bruised elbow, and ran away without looking back. Her fluttering white dress was like a fluttering white butterfly, beautiful and moving. The Bentley came to an abrupt stop. The secretary, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, was stunned when she saw the girl jump out of the car. Her heart was already filled with shock. In the capital, Chairman Mu had always beckoned with his finger. No matter if it was a young model, a diva, or a young lady from a prestigious family, they would always be overwhelmed by his favor. However, the CEO had always been cold and had never taken a fancy to any woman. If he took a second look at a woman, her heart would probably jump out of her throat. In the entertainment empire controlled by the Mu Group, any artiste in the circle who was involved in a scandal with the president would be hyped up by the entertainment reporters. But this girl rejected him from 1,000 miles away. What was he thinking? If she could catch the CEO's eye, she would not have to worry about wealth and glory for the rest of her life. It didn't seem like she was playing hard to get. The way she looked at the president was as if she was guarding against a wolf. It was as if the president was some kind of ferocious beast that would eat her alive. Thinking of this, she smiled and said, "Chairman Mu, this girl is really stubborn. She's different from the other women." From the bottom of her heart, she admired this girl who was humble on the surface but proud on the inside. Mu Yaja retracted his gaze and did not linger any longer. His eyes were filled with coldness. Drive. The Bentley started slowly and sped away. When Yu saw that Yin Shirshir had not returned home, he went out and wanted to get a new phone. The children's phone that Yin Shirshir had bought for him was too childish. At the crucial moment, he wanted to use technology to locate Yin Shirshir's location, but there was no way. He was born with a gift, so his learning ability was very good since he was young. Chapter 64. When Yu was 4 years old, he was already able to assemble his own supercomputer. Even the top scientific laboratories could not compare to his advanced system. Although he was not even 7 years old, his achievements had already attracted the attention of the world. However, all of this was a secret that he had buried deep in his heart. When he passed by the bookshelf, he accidentally caught a glimpse of an entertainment magazine. Yu's gaze was inexplicably attracted by the handsome man in the magazine. He gently tiptoed and took down the brand new magazine. He skimmed through it. The title was "Mysterious Woman Hooks Up with Mu's Crown Prince, Has a Secret Rendezvous in the Middle of the Night, Suspected Secret Relationship Exposed." The cover of the magazine was a candid shot of a handsome man and a slender girl with a blurry figure at the entrance of a hotel. The mysterious woman was none other than Lu Yushi, who was now known as the new starlet. Lu Yushi rose to fame because of her scandal with Heavenly King Guxingzi. At that time, her scandal with him was unparalleled, and it was on the front page of the 3 major entertainment media. After that, she signed a contract with Worldwide Entertainment in a high-profile manner, and took on a movie that Worldwide Entertainment invested in. She became famous overnight as the female lead in the movie and was known as the Goddess of Huanyu. The public speculated that Worldwide Entertainment was willing to promote her because she had an ambiguous relationship with the person in charge behind Worldwide Entertainment, and this person was Muyaja. As for how the magazine was able to capture this picture, it was probably mostly due to luck. They had always wanted to gossip about Lu Yushi's mysterious private background, but they had inadvertently captured this ambiguous picture. Muyaja had never been involved in any scandals before, so it was rarely published in the newspapers. It was precisely because of the influence and prominent status of the Mu Corporation, coupled with the fact that he had always been mysterious, that most of the news about him was just groundless speculation. Moreover, if any newspaper or magazine dared to publish a scandal about him, they would probably receive a negotiation call from the Mu Corporation the next day. However, what attracted Yu's attention was not the title, but the man in the photo. His facial features, eyebrows, eyes, and even his demeanor were 80% similar to his own. It was as if they were cast from the same mold. "Oh, Yu widened his eyes in disbelief. He looked at the cover of the magazine and subconsciously touched his little face. There was a strange and suspicious look in the depths of his eyes. The same deep and captivating eyes, the same exquisite and straight nose, and even the same thin lips. Yu's mind was in a mess. Damn it! Similar, too similar. It was as if they were carved from the same mold. He and this man were simply copying and pasting. With many doubts in his mind, Yu left the bookstore and bought the magazine. As he walked down the street, he lowered his head in thought. Suddenly, a Bentley drove by. The old man sitting at the back of the car leaned on his cane, and leaned back with a solemn expression. However, when he inadvertently cast his gaze out of the window, he caught a glimpse of an extremely familiar figure. "Stop!" he yelled, and the driver was shocked. He slammed on the brakes and stopped the Bentley by the side of the road. "Master, what's wrong?" The old man sat quietly and looked out of the window. His gaze was like an eagle's. Chapter 65. He watched as the child slowly walked past the car. Little Munchkin's handsome side profile, deep facial features, and the way he looked deep in thought. The elegant curve of his lips and his refined temperament were exactly the same as Muyage's when he was young. He was even carved from the same mold as Xiaoyi Chen. If it weren't for the different temperament between his eyebrows and Xiaoyi Chen's, elegant, deep, mature, and steady, he even thought that this child was Xiaoyi Chen. He was slightly surprised. This child's appearance was so similar to Muyage's. He was about 6 or 7 years old, and he could tell that he came from an ordinary family. How could there be such a coincidence? A gentle breeze blew past, and the child's silky hair brushed past his face. He raised his head slightly and took a closer look. This was definitely not a coincidence. The old man reached out to open the car door. When the chauffeur saw this, he hurriedly got out of the car and walked over to help him. However, the old man pushed him away and walked quickly toward the child with his cane. The chauffeur hurriedly followed. Old Master's health wasn't good, and he had to go to the hospital regularly every month. Before leaving, young Madam had repeatedly told him to take good care of Old Master. He couldn't let anything go wrong. Yu walked at a steady pace, but he gradually distanced himself from the old man. The old man pointed at him, and the chauffeur hurriedly strode forward. He grabbed Yu's sleeve and stopped him. "Stop right there." Yu was blocked by an unfamiliar man. He didn't know what was going on and stopped in his tracks. However, due to his good upbringing, he smiled elegantly. "Uncle, what's the matter?" An old man's voice came from behind him. "Child, turn around and let me take a look at you." When Yu heard this, he casually turned around and smiled at the old man. He was very cultured and knew how to be polite and respect the old man. The old man looked to be in his 60s. Although he didn't look very energetic and was a little thin, his gaze was sharp. Although there was no expression on his face, he exuded a dignified aura without being angry. His entire person exuded an extremely dignified and intimidating aura. It was obvious that he was a man who had experienced the wind and rain. With one look, one could tell that he was a big shot when he was young. Sizing up the child at such a close distance, it was simply unbelievable. This child was already so big. Could it be that he was Muyage's illegitimate child? How was this possible? Aja had always been heartless to women. How could he have such a big child with another woman behind his back? She looked like she was carved out of the same mold as Xiaoyi Chen. Unbelievable. "Child, what's your name?" Yu smiled elegantly. He did not know why, but he did not like this old man staring at him. His thin lips curled up slightly. Although he was smiling, his eyes were cold and distant. "Grandpa, before my mommy left, she told me not to talk to strangers." The old man was shocked. This child's eyes and tone were shockingly mature and steady. His boldness and demeanor did not resemble that of a 6 or 7-year-old child. He was just like Muyage when he was 9 years old. He was smart, deep, and mature. His deep gaze was extremely similar. "Who's your mommy? Tell me." "Who my mommy is has nothing to do with you." After he finished speaking, he curled his lips into a smile and turned to leave. However, the chauffeur stopped him again. The chauffeur was a martial arts practitioner. He did not know his limits and hurt him. The smile on Yu's face immediately turned cold. Chapter 66. He lowered his eyes and glanced at the arm in front of him. The corners of his lips curled up and his thick eyelashes drooped down, perfectly concealing the playfulness in his eyes. "Grandpa, are these the subordinates you've trained?" Yu glanced coldly at the chauffeur beside him and said calmly, "Aren't you afraid of losing your cool by letting your subordinate make things difficult for a child?" The old man stared at him for a long while before turning his head and waving his hand. "Ahai, don't be rude." The chauffeur immediately understood and retracted his arm. Yu straightened his sleeves that were crumpled by the chauffeur and turned to leave. The old man stared blankly at his back as he frowned and pursed his lips. "Old master. Ahai, find a way to investigate this child's background," the old man ordered as he tapped his cane. He had to investigate this child thoroughly. This was because his intuition told him that there was no mistake. This child was definitely the blood of the Mu family. When he reached home, Yu put down his school bag and put on his teddy bear apron. He moved a small stool over and started to get busy in the kitchen. He cooked, washed the vegetables, turned on the stove, and fried the wok. Little Munchkin stepped on the stool and held a large spoon in his hand. In less than an hour, a meal that was comparable to a 5-star restaurant's was served on the table. He looked at the time and saw that it was not time to get off work yet. He took his clothes to the balcony and washed them, but Yin Shersher was still nowhere to be seen. Little Munchkin raised his eyebrows and took out a magazine from his school bag. He flipped through it page by page and looked at the photos. He frowned and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he took out his phone from his pocket and dialed a number. Then he took out a voice changer. This was a gadget that he had assembled himself. He had set up the voice of an adult man and stuck it next to the phone's microphone. It could change his childish voice into a deep man's voice. "Agent Lee, I'm Arthur." A man's respectful voice came from the other end. "Yes. President, what can I do for you?" Yu tilted her head and tapped her fingers rhythmically on the table. A glint flashed across her eyes. "Go and investigate a person's background for me. I want to know all of his information and movements." "Yes, President. Please go ahead." Yuyu's gaze fell on the photo in the magazine again. His fair, jade-like fingertips slowly caressed the side of the man's handsome face as he smiled. "CEO of Dishing Financial Group, Muyaja." "Understood. Everything, no matter how big or small, please make a report and send it to my email." "All right." Yin Tianyu ended the call and fell into deep thought. He never believed that there would be two identical leaves in the world. He also didn't believe that there would be a man in this world who looked so similar to him. He even faintly suspected the relationship between this man and him. Regarding his father, it wasn't that he had never asked his mother about it since he was young, but his mother had always treated him as a child and had never told him the truth. She only said that his father was a military officer who had gone to the front line, but had disappeared without a trace. In fact, this was not the first time he had suspected that his father was someone else. He didn't care who his father was though. Mommy was enough for him. He didn't care if he didn't have a daddy. In any case, with or without him, his life would not change at all, right? Chapter 67. However, just because he did not care, it did not mean that he was not curious. Children had an inexplicable sense of respect and reverence for their fathers since they were young. Yu had also had such fantasies. How could he not wish to be like other children? To return home and have a loving father and mother who would protect him and form a warm family with him? However, for as long as he could remember, he had seen his mother living alone. There was no man in the family who could support her and she was bullied. That time, he had seen a father accompanying his son to watch a remote-controlled racing car in the park. He had yearned for it so much. However, the more he yearned for it, the more he could not get it. Over time, his reverence for his father had turned into resentment. Now the concept of a father did not matter to him. It was fine as long as he had his mother. It did not matter if he did not have a father. He did not care. Now he had everything. No one would have guessed that although he was only 6 years old, he was already the largest shareholder of Leji Holdings. Leji Holdings was the world's largest toy supplier. Its supply chain was spread across North America, Europe, and Asia. Many children were proud of owning toys from Leji Holdings. He held 60% of the shares of the board of directors. Not only that, he was also the chief toy designer of Leji Holdings. Every toy he designed became the new favorite of children, and became popular all over the world. While other children were playing with their toys, he was already worth hundreds of millions. However, Yin Shirshir was still in the dark about all this. She just lacked an opportunity to tell him the truth. While she was deep in thought, the doorbell rang. Then there was a dong sound. It sounded like someone had slumped against the door. Then there was Yin Shirshir's weak voice. It sounded like she had been ravaged. Yu's eyes flashed. The scheming look on his face disappeared, and was replaced by the cute and innocent smile he always had in front of Yin Shirshir. He ran to the door, opened it, and threw himself into his mother's arms. Mommy. Let's go home. Yu waited so long for Mommy. When Yu raised her head, she saw Yin Shirshir, who looked haggard but was still forcing a smile. Mommy is back. Yin Shirshir was exhausted. As soon as she entered the house, she heard the sound of the washing machine running. The warmth of home immediately surrounded her and drove away the haze of the night. She was so happy to have a Yu in her life, especially with such an obedient and sensible son. Yin Shirshir was so touched that the tip of her nose tingled. She didn't even bother to change into slippers before she opened her arms and hugged him tightly in her arms. His entire body seemed to be filled with vitality. Who said that daughters were their mommy's sweet little cotton-padded jackets? Her precious Yu was even more caring than the daughters of other families. She then thought of a certain man. They were clearly father and son. How could the son be so cute, charming, gentle, and considerate? How could the father have such a cold face all day long, like a living iceberg? Genetics really couldn't be trusted. Yin Shirshir looked at Yu's face. Suddenly Mu Yaja's enlarged version of Yu's handsome face appeared in front of her eyes. Her heart instantly shrank. Chapter 68. Yu couldn't help but worry when he sensed that she was sensitive to her emotions. Mommy, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Don't worry, Yu. Mommy will protect you well, and won't let anyone take you away from Mommy. Yu was stunned. He frowned slightly and a thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. However, it disappeared quickly and he regained his gentle smile. Mommy, what are you saying? Yu has always been Mommy's baby. You will always be Mommy's baby. Yin Shirshir was touched and comforted when she heard that. She didn't dote on her precious son for nothing. She cupped little Munchkin's face and kissed him passionately. Baby, Mommy loves you so much. Stupid Mommy, come in quickly. The cold wind was blowing gently outside the window. Seeing that Yin Shirshir's nose was red from the cold, Yu couldn't help but give her a sideways glance. He immediately went in to prepare slippers for her. Yin Shirshir entered the house and threw her bag on the sofa. However, she caught a glimpse of the magazine on the table. In that instant, she saw the cold-looking man on the cover, and her face turned pale instantly. Yu, what's on the table? It's just an entertainment magazine that I bought casually. Yu smiled and walked to the table calmly. He kept the magazine in his bag calmly. Yin Shirshir heaved a sigh of relief. Yu, don't buy such rubbish entertainment magazines in the future. You can't imagine how the adult world is like. Yu couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. He didn't even bother to roll his eyes. Although he was young, he was no less experienced than his mother. He knew better than Yin Shirshir how dirty the adult world was. Yu set the table for her, scooped a bowl of rice for her, and placed her favorite dishes in front of her. His service was top-notch. No matter how big or small, he took good care of her. Yin Shirshir enjoyed her precious son's service with a clear conscience. Her heart was so full of satisfaction and happiness that it was about to overflow. Stupid Mommy, hurry and eat. Yin Shirshir picked up the bowl and wolfed down the food. Yu glanced at her coldly with a look of disdain. Her table manners would scare a group of people away. She was usually quiet and demure when she socialized and compared it to what she was doing now. Mommy, be more demure. You have to be more reserved when you eat. You have to eat your food. Yin Shirshir, however, did not think much of it. This was their home. Why should they be so reserved? Don't worry, we're not so much. Yu learned how to cook when he was 4 years old. He was a good learner, and could make delicious dishes just by looking at a recipe. Until now he could easily cook French, Western and Chinese dishes. His cooking skills were comparable to those of a star-rated chef. Yin Shirshir always ate what he cooked. Sometimes, when she went to the restaurant, She felt that the food made by the chef was tasteless. This made her even more worried. She could not live without Yu. In a way, she was a successful mother for being able to raise such a son. In another way, she was a mother but did not do any housework at home. Her son, on the other hand, was proficient in all aspects of housework. She was really a failure of a mother. However, Yu did not eat. He just looked at Yin Shirshir quietly. Suddenly, he crossed his arms and supported his chin lazily. He smiled and looked at her. Mommy Yu, can I ask you a small question? Yin Shirshir did not think much of it, and ate a mouthful of rice. What's the question? Yu smiled. Who is my daddy? Chapter 69. Before she could finish her question, Yin Shirshir choked on a mouthful of rice, and her face flushed red. Yu smiled elegantly. He nonchalantly scooped a bowl of soup for her, and thoughtfully patted her back. Yin Shirshir hurriedly drank 2 to 3 mouthfuls before she could swallow it down. She then looked at Yu with a look that said, Do you know something? Why did he suddenly ask this question? Could it be that the child's sharp senses had detected something? Yu could see the panic and helplessness in her eyes at one glance. He then gave her an innocent smile that said, I don't know anything. Yin Shirshir smacked her forehead. Yu had asked her this question when he was very young. At the crucial moment, she casually made up a lie to dodge his question. Hence, after so long, she could not remember what she had answered back then. If her answer was different from back then, and Yu remembered it, would it not be contradictory? After hesitating for a moment, Yin Shirshir decisively changed the topic. Hey baby, come over and massage mommy's shoulders. My back is aching after a long day of work. As soon as she said that, she saw Yu giving her a disdainful look. Yin Shirshir broke out in cold sweat. Yu, what's with that look? She felt guilty for staring at him like that. Yu sighed. I really don't know what to do with mommy. He got up and sat beside Yin Shirshir, massaging her shoulders with his little fists. Yin Lan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She had finally gotten away with it. Little did she know that the little boy, who was behind her, was looking at her guiltily. Yin Tianyu carefully observed her expression. Seeing her doubtful look, he slowly said, I called you this morning, but why was it an uncle who picked up? What? Yin Shirshir was stunned. Could it be that man? Who is that uncle? Yu's childish voice made her extremely nervous. Yin Shirshir cautiously asked, Did that uncle say anything else? Did he ask for your name? No. Even if uncle asked, you wouldn't tell him. Yu pouted. Didn't mommy teach you not to tell strangers my name? Yu, good boy. You're my good Yu. Yin was extremely gratified. Yu even asked uncle to give mommy a raise. Yu innocently and romantically tilted his head, revealing his pearly white teeth with a smile. Yin Shirshir's eyes welled up as her voice became slightly hoarse. You will never leave mommy, right? Yu immediately replied. You will never leave mommy. Why did mommy ask such a question? Yin Shirshir took a deep breath and carefully asked. If one day, your biological father wants to take you away. No. Yu's mommy's Yu. Yu only loves mommy. The little guy's adorable confession almost made Yin Shirshir burst into tears. She hugged the little guy tightly, and the uneasiness in her heart instantly dissipated. No one could snatch her Yu away. No one could snatch him away in this lifetime. Yin Shirshir said apologetically. Yu, no matter what, mommy will never leave you alone at home again. Yu was hugged so tightly that his little face turned red. However, his 2 little hands kept patting her shoulders as if to comfort her. Chapter 70. Yin Shirshir paused and said half-heartedly, When I was eating, I accidentally bit it. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Yu looking at her with an extremely helpless expression. Mommy, how did you eat? How could you bite such a small part? Please use your brain when you're lying, okay? Did she really think that he was a 6-year-old child? Although he was really only 6 years old. Yin Shirshir felt awkward when the child saw through her lie. But she still coaxed him. It was really a bite. Although she didn't bite it herself. However, Yu was just as sensitive as his father. He narrowed his eyes and asked, Who bit you? Yin Shirshir felt a headache coming on at the thought of that man. Genetics was a wonderful thing. At this moment, the father and son were so similar. She laughed dryly and said, "Mommy accidentally bit it." Seeing that she didn't want to talk about it, Yu didn't force her to explain it to him. He only pursed his lips and said, "Mommy, if anyone bullies you, just tell Yu. Yu will protect Mommy." Yin Shirshir could not help but laugh. This child was clearly only 6 years old, but sometimes he gave her the illusion that he was more mature than she was. It was as if his mind was more mature than hers. He was calm and composed. However, she didn't think much of it. She just thought that Yu was worried about her. Touched, she kissed his forehead and hugged him. Yu smiled warmly, but his heart was throbbing with pain. Mommy was still so young. At this age, she should be enjoying the beauty of youth, but she had to face the burden of maturity at such a young age. For him, she studied and worked while raising him. She had tasted the taste of hardship at a young age. When she was breastfeeding, she couldn't bear to leave anything good for him. Life was slow, and she was so tired that her body almost collapsed. There were many times when he couldn't help but want to tell her that he could take care of the whole family and protect her now. However, he was a little worried. He was worried that if Mommy saw him like this, would she be able to accept it? Would she not look at him like he was a monster? This morning he flipped through the bills for the past few months and saw a string of shocking numbers on the bills. With just a glance, he couldn't help but be shocked. The place they rented was an apartment near the school district in the city center. The environment was elegant, and most importantly, it was safe. Not to mention the shockingly high rent for the time being. Just the monthly property management fees and utilities were shockingly expensive. That was not all. She had always wanted to give Yu the best environment to study and the best space to grow. Therefore, she had always given him the best food and clothing. This was also a huge expense. After deducting this from her monthly salary, there was very little left. In the past, her monthly salary of 20,000 yuan was tempting, but in reality, it disappeared like water once it was in her hands. Mommy, don't work so hard in the future. Yu's heart ached when she saw this. If Yu doesn't go to an aristocratic kindergarten or an extracurricular class, life won't be so difficult. Yu's gaze softened as she spoke. But last time, I heard from Auntie Xiao Shui that acting used to be Mommy's dream. If Mommy still has dreams, Yu will definitely support Mommy. Okay. But don't frown every day. Yu's heart will ache for you. Yin Shirshir smiled apologetically and pretended to be relaxed as she clapped her hands. Eat. Mommy was wrong. The 3 rules stated that I can't bring my bad mood from work to home. Yu made so much delicious food today, but it's all gone cold. It's Mommy's fault. As she spoke, Yin Shirshir smiled and started eating. Yu sat quietly at the side. Her eyes were like crescents, and they seemed to be filled with a circle of fragmented moonlight. Yin Shirshir had always been strong in the face of setbacks, so she quickly erased all the unpleasant scenes from her memory. Chapter 71. In the afternoon, Yin Na received the invitation that she had been dreaming of. However, she received a warning call from Li Dongqiang. When she picked up the call, she heard a furious interrogation from the other end of the phone. Yin Na, you wretched wretch. Do you King know who you've offended? I'm in deep trouble because of you. She was baffled by his words and clearly did not understand. Brother Chang, what's wrong? That elder sister of yours looks young and harmless, but her background is not small. I can't even touch a strand of her hair, can I? Yesterday, I just wanted to play with her. I didn't even touch a finger of hers, but I almost lost an arm. I didn't expect her to have a sugar daddy. She caused me to offend the most important person in the capital. She almost killed me. Yin Na was a little confused. Brother Chang, what do you mean? Why can't I understand? You still don't understand? The man on the other side was furious as he shouted at her. Then I'll make it clear to you. Your sister has a sugar daddy behind her. As for who the sugar daddy is and what his identity is, it's not something a commoner like you has the right to ask. Yin Na was shocked when she heard that, but she smiled and said, Brother Chang, are you kidding? My sister is also a commoner. How could she have a sugar daddy? She also has a child from a previous marriage. I don't know which bastard she had with outside. How could a woman like her have a sugar daddy? You must be kidding. Yin Na's face was full of disgust when she thought of Yin Shirshir. Wasn't she just a pair of used shoes? Was Brother Chang joking with her? How do you think she's you? Your sister's trash is the type of woman that many big bosses like. Let's not talk about it anymore. You owe me 200,000 this time, and you have to give it to me with interest. If you don't pay it back in 2 days, I'll go to your door and collect the debt. With that, he hung up the phone fiercely. Don't, Brother Chang. Yin Na was stunned. It was obvious that she had not recovered from her shock. At night, Yin Shirshir brought Yu back to the Yin family. Just now, when she passed by Yin Na after entering the house, Yin Na saw her and got angry, so she bumped into her hard. Yin Shirshir almost fell to the ground. She clenched her fists and turned around. Her eyes were cold, and she was no longer as patient as before. Yin Na glared hatefully at her and said in disdain, "You blind B***tch. Unexpectedly, Pa." Yin Shirshir sneered as she slapped the other's face with a crisp and forceful slap. Yin Na stared at her blankly. She actually hit her. In a moment of anger, she angrily said, "How dare you hit me?" Yin Shirshir paused and calmly turned around. Her face was neither cold nor hot. "Look at you. Who else am I supposed to hit if not you?" Li Yin was shocked. She couldn't believe that Yin Shirshir, who had always been weak and timid, dared to disobey her. Despicable wretch. Are you trying to rebel? Why? Are you looking down on me when my dad isn't home? The prerequisite is that you're a human. Yin Shirshir curled her lips and retorted curtly. Yin Na was furious and raised her hand high to slap her. B***tch, I'll kill you. Pa. The slap landed on her face. Fortunately, Yin Shirshir dodged in time, so it didn't hurt or itch. Yin Shirshir sneered. Turning around, she grabbed the woman's collar and pushed her against the wall. Smack. Her palm landed on the woman's face. Chapter 72. She returned the slap tenfold. He did not hold back at all. Yin Na was caught off guard and took the full brunt of the blow. Yin Shirshir did not intend to let her off just like that. She slapped her again. She had obsessive-compulsive disorder and had to be symmetrical on both sides. Now both sides of her cheeks were clearly imprinted with 5 fingerprints. Her beautiful face was somewhat ruined. Yin Na flew into a rage out of humiliation. She was proud of her beautiful face and usually protected it well. Now that Yin Shirshir had actually hurt her face, she simply wanted to strangle this B***tch to death. She rushed forward to wrestle with her, but Yin Shirshir grabbed her wrist and twisted it in the opposite direction. Yin Na cried out in pain and tried to grab her hair. "What are you all doing?" An angry roar came from the door. Yun Yecheng stood at the door and looked at the chaotic scene in the living room. His eyes were red with anger. "Stop it, all of you. Are all of you rebelling?" "Dad." When Yin Shirshir saw him return, she immediately concealed the originally cold expression on her face without a trace. In the blink of an eye, an aggrieved expression appeared on her face. "Yin Na is too much." As she spoke, she even sobbed a few times as if she had suffered a great grievance. Yin Na was dumbfounded. With Yin Shirshir's character in the past, she would swallow her teeth and never complain to Yin Tianho, no matter how aggrieved she was. Now she had learned to pretend to be innocent. Yin Na was flustered. Her face was still burning. Who was the one who had gone overboard? Her weakness and helplessness were truly piercing and pitiful. Anyone who saw such a pitiful look would feel heartache. Yin Yecheng was even more heartbroken when he saw this. A pair of sharp eyes glared fiercely at Yin Na, causing her to shudder involuntarily. Hearing the strange noise, Li Qin walked out of the room and saw this scene. She saw the swollen fingerprints on her daughter's face. "Mom, this B***tch hit me? She even called me a B***tch. Who are you calling a B***tch? Li Qin was furious when she heard this. She pointed at Yu and yelled at Yin Shirshir. "The Yin family will not acknowledge you 2 bastards and will not raise an unfilial daughter like you." Yin Shirshir sneered. Yu walked forward and held Yin Shirshir's hand. She turned to look at Wanfang and revealed a charming and deep smile on her handsome and adorable little face. "Auntie, don't worry. I'll take care of Mommy. You don't have to worry. You have money, you should think about how to take care of your face." Hearing this, Li Qin's Li's Yin Shirshir's. She was originally beautiful, But after giving birth to Yin Na, stretch marks appeared on her face. In addition, she was middle-aged and her appearance was no longer as beautiful as when she was young. No matter how she maintained her beauty, it was useless. Yu Yu's poisonous tongue stabbed right into her sore spot. Look at this child. She looks so innocent and adorable at such a young age. Yet she could say such vicious words. She choked on her words. Yu Yu looked up and tugged at Yun Shirshir's sleeve. Her tender voice was innocent and harmless. Mommy, do you know what disgusting means when disgusting mommy opens the door for disgusting? Yun Shirshir asked with a smile. What does it mean? Yu Yu glanced at the mother and daughter nonchalantly and said, It's disgusting to the core. Hearing this, Li Qin realized that the child was mocking her. Furious, she rushed forward and raised her hand to slap Yu Yu. But Yun Shirshir grabbed her wrist. You unfilial daughter. How dare you hit my daughter? Do you want to hit me as well? Yecheng looked at Nana's face. It was slapped by this little b****. Without waiting for him to respond, she lifted her head to look at him. Yes, I slapped her. But your daughter is restless outside. She gambles and takes drugs. She's in debt and caused me to lose my job. Yesterday, she almost caused me to. She did not continue speaking in her embarrassment. You can say that I'm born to a mother, but not raised by one. You can say that I live and eat your food, but I'm not a lowly servant who has to listen to your whims and be used by you. I have my dignity. How can you enslave me like this? Yun Shirshir said with forbearance. Chapter 73. You. Li Qin was speechless for a moment. These words coming out of her mouth were what Li Qin had told her in the past, and she actually remembered them all. In the past, Yun Shirshir was too weak and could be bullied by any Tom, Dick or Harry. Things were different now. She would no longer tolerate and give them a taste of their own medicine. Whatever they had treated her in the past, she would return it to them one by one. Li Qin could not take it anymore. She walked over and grabbed her arm, but before she could speak, Yun Shirshir glanced coldly at Li Qin's hand on her shoulder and expressionlessly ordered, Take your hand off me. Her tone was filled with inviolable arrogance. Li Qin was stunned and widened her eyes in shock. She was infuriated by her cold attitude. Do you still see me as your mother? Yun Shirshir snorted inwardly, but she put on a sweet smile and said, Didn't you say that I was born without a mother? You've never admitted that I'm your daughter, but now you're asking me if I see you in my eyes? Li Qin finally could not take it anymore and said unhappily, Humph. It's a good thing that your mother didn't raise you when she gave birth to you. Otherwise, she'd be angered to death to see you bring back a little B****-starred child. Yun Shirshir's cold eyes revealed a dangerous look. Ha! You should be more concerned about your daughter. Ask her what trouble she has caused you outside. Yun Na hurriedly fanned the flames and said, Dad! Look at that. She's framing me? Yun Shirshir, you B****tch. Not only did you hook up with other men outside, you even imitated others and gave birth to a child out of wedlock, and even brought back an illegitimate child. How unfilial. How many people will point fingers at the Yun family if this matter gets out? They'll say that the daughter of the Yun family was spoiled by men outside, and gave birth to a B****-starred child alone. Now you're here to frame me for taking drugs outside. Do you have any evidence? This Yun Na had always been good at putting on a show. She was a two-faced villain behind the scenes. Ever since she was young, she liked to tease her, bully her, and ostracize her along with Li Qin. She even deliberately made up stories about her in front of Yin Yecheng to sow discord between them. Dad, do you believe her, or do you believe me? Yun Shirshir stared at him, determined not to give in this time. Dad, don't listen to this bitch's nonsense. You have to believe me. I'm your biological daughter. Shut up. Yun Yecheng could no longer hold himself back. He had always believed in Yun Shirshir unconditionally, because he had always seen her compromise for the greater good. He did not expect that she had suffered so much when he was not at home. Li Qin, I think you're getting worse and worse. Shirshir is still a child. You're so cruel and merciless. Where's your conscience? When Yun Yecheng saw that Yun Na was not retorting and was only cowering in a corner guiltily, he naturally understood that she was feeling guilty. Sure. Gambling and taking drugs? Yun-na, you've really made Dad proud. It's not like that. Dad, let me explain. Yun-na said with teary eyes. Shut up. You be asterisk starred. Yun Yeching was so angry that his face turned pale. He gave Yun-na a hard slap across her face. That night, Yun Yeching gave Yun-na a hard slap in front of Li Qin for the first time. The belt lashed across her back, leaving a mark of disappointment for her failure to live up to his expectations. Even after leaving the Yun residence, Yun Shishir could still hear the hoarse sobs of Yun-na, who was kneeling outside the living room door. Since she was young until now, Yun-na had never suffered such humiliation, and she probably hated him to the bone now. These punishments were nothing to Yun Shishir. The things that Li Qin and Yun-na had done to her in the past were still engraved in her mind. Needle pricks, palm slaps, hair tearing. Chapter 74. In the taxi back to the apartment, Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking a little unhappy. Seeing his gloomy expression, Yun Shishir reached out to pinch his tender cheeks. Yu, what's wrong? Are you unhappy? Yu snorted coldly. Mommy, they're all bullying you. I hate them. I hate Grandma. Yun Shishir frowned. She knew that Yu's heart ached for her. Although this child was usually gentle and cute in front of her, she had long sensed that Yu was different from other children since he was young. Due to the hardships of his childhood, he was sometimes mature from a young age. In addition, he was born smart, so he could understand her situation very well. He was sensible and obedient, rarely being willful, and he was always on her side. She patted his little head and smiled. Mommy is the happiest person in the world with Yu, so don't bother about them. Yu pursed his lips and cupped Yunlan's cheeks with his little hands. Mommy, don't be sad. If anyone makes Mommy angry in the future, Yu won't be polite to them. Yun Shishir didn't take it seriously and only thought that he was joking. She couldn't help but laugh and tease him. Yu, good boy? Mommy didn't dote on Yu for nothing. Yu raised his brows and his tender lips curled up elegantly. A trace of mesmerizing gentleness flashed across his dark jade-like eyes. As long as Mommy is happy, Yu is willing to do anything. A devilish smile flashed across Yu's eyes. Mommy, Yu can really protect you. When the mother and son returned to the apartment, the manager called and asked her to attend a drinking party at the Crown Hotel. She hurried over. The huge Crown Hotel was luxuriously decorated and dazzling. Yun Shishir originally planned to sleep, but the company called and said that the artist she was in charge of was going to have dinner with a big boss, so she was asked to come over and take care of it. As she was rushing towards the banquet, she suddenly caught a glimpse of an extremely familiar figure in the luxurious corridor covered with red carpets. At the end of the corridor, a little boy of about 5 or 6 years old was walking slowly with a servant following him. His figure and back were shockingly similar to Yu's. Yun Shishir's heart was startled and frightened. Unexpectedly, she followed him like a ghost. She was very careful and did not make any sound as she walked on the expensive carpet. However, the handsome boy's hearing was amazing. He turned around alertly and bumped into Yun Shishir. Her perplexed gaze fell on the boy's handsome and tender face. In that instant, her heart surged. Yu. His black hair was very smooth, especially under the reflection of the retro wall lamps in the corridor, which made his hair look even softer and brighter. With fair skin, rosy cheeks, a high nose bridge, and a small red mouth, the little guy's facial features had the beautiful and deep lines of a European descendant, but it did not lose the gentle aura of an Asian. He had a pair of big, watery eyes with long, curved eyelashes that were thick and soft, long and curly, and slightly upturned like 2 black feathers. His black jade-like pupils were as bright as the galaxy, ethereal and mesmerizing. They were also like dazzling diamonds, without a trace of impurities and breathtaking. However, there was only coldness in his eyes now. Although he was young, he had the aura of an emperor. His exquisite facial features were exactly the same as Yu's. The only difference was that between the 2 children, one was deep and cold, while the other was gentle and elegant. Chapter 75. This child. Could it be? Yun Shishir was taken aback by the conjecture in her heart. 6 years ago, she signed a contract with that man and gave birth to twins. As Yu was born prematurely, her breathing was weak when she came out. A careless nurse mistook her for no signs of life. Her brother, on the other hand, was taken away by that man. Yun Yeqing had erased all traces of Yu Yu. It was already a blessing for her to be able to keep Yu Yu by her side. However, as a mother, she could not afford to ignore her own flesh and blood. For the past 6 years, she had been secretly sketching the outline of another child she had never met in her mind. This child must be very similar to Yu Yu. He must have the same eyes, nose and beautiful face as Yu Yu. However, he didn't expect that the two children were so similar that they were carved from the same mold. Yin Shirshir stared at him in a daze. Unknowingly, tears welled up in her eyes. She never thought that she would be able to see this child again in this lifetime. There seemed to be an intimate bond between mother and son. It was like a bond. Mu Yichen's character was like Mu Yaja's. He never liked a stranger staring at him so blatantly. However, looking at this woman who was suddenly defeated in front of him with tears streaming down her face, his cold and hard heart softened in an instant. "Who are you?" Mu Yichen turned around and sized her up suspiciously with a wary look on his face. Yin Shirshir heard his young voice, which was very similar to Yu Yu's. For a moment, she could not help but walk toward him. Mu Yichen retreated vigilantly, subconsciously not letting her near him. The few helpers standing behind him hurriedly blocked Yin Shirshir's path when they saw her approaching. "Who are you? You're not allowed to go near the young master." Yin Shirshir opened her mouth but was tongue-tied for a moment. That's right. Who was she? Did she think that she could recognize this child? But his own flesh and blood was right in front of him. Yet he couldn't recognize him. What kind of pain was this? What kind of irony was this? She smiled and said calmly, "Don't worry, I'm not a bad person. I won't hurt you." Mu Yichen's heart was warmed by his mother's gentle smile. He had never seen such a warm smile before. For as long as he could remember, his father rarely smiled in front of him. On the other hand, his mommy often smiled at him, but there were too many complicated things in her smile, which sent chills down his spine. For the first time in his life, this strange woman made him feel the tenderness of a mother. In an instant, a white light flashed in his mind, as if too many thoughts had entered his mind. But they were strangers after all, so he didn't show any signs of closeness. "Then why are you staring at me? I don't like it." Mu Yichen warned her, but his tone was not as cold as usual. It was only faint and emotionless. Yin Shirshir smiled and was about to reply when an unfamiliar female voice came from behind her. "Who's standing there?" Yin Shirshir turned her head in shock, only to see an elegantly dressed woman standing behind her, coldly sizing her up. However, the moment Yin Shirshir turned around, that woman instantly raised her guard. Yin Shirshir. Chapter 76. Mu Wanru was shocked. She didn't expect to meet her again here. After not seeing her for more than 10 years, the weak and helpless girl in her memory had grown into a beautiful, pure, and refined girl. The peaceful years didn't seem to have left any traces on her body. Even though she didn't put on any makeup, she was still shockingly beautiful. She was so young that she looked like a high school student. Yin Shirshir also saw her, and a white light flashed across her mind. She felt that this face with thick rouge looked familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere before. However, she couldn't remember exactly where she had met her before. She only felt that she looked extremely familiar. Mu Wanru felt her hair stand on end from her stare. She secretly gritted her teeth. How small was this capital? Why did the person she didn't want to see the most appear right in front of her? Ever since she found out that Mu Yaja was investigating her identity, she had been plotting how to get rid of this thorn in her flesh. Now, it seemed that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. She pursed her red lips and attacked Yin Shirshir step by step. She asked in a condescending manner, "Who are you? What are you doing in this hotel? Did you register at the front desk? What's your occupation? What's your identity? You're dressed so shabbily. Do you have the right to step into this 6-star hotel?" "I'm an artist's assistant at Huanyu Entertainment." "Which artist? What's her name?" Mu Wanru didn't have the patience to listen to her. She only wanted to chase her away and not appear in front of her and Xiao Chen. "Mommy," Mu Yichen calmly called out from behind her. Yin Shirshir instinctively turned around and suddenly realized that this child wasn't calling her mommy. Mu Wanru expressionlessly pushed Yin Shirshir away, and walked in front of Xiaoyichen. Her face was no longer cold and indifferent. Instead, it was filled with motherly tenderness. "What's wrong, baby?" Yin Shishir looked at this scene and suddenly realized the woman's identity. She was the woman who slapped her in the villa 6 years ago. She was that man's fiancée. Because she was infertile, she chose to be a surrogate in order to continue the family line. That scene was still fresh in her mind. He still remembered that this woman looked down at him, as if she was looking at a lowly beggar. "I'm tired. I want to go home," Xiaoyichen said briefly. He was a man of few words. Mu Wanru smiled and said, "Good. I'll ask Auntie Gui to bring you back." Auntie Gui hurriedly stepped forward to take Xiaoyichen's hand, and was about to leave when the little fellow suddenly turned around and looked deeply at Yin Shishir. His thin lips were tightly pursed as he followed Auntie Gui out. Only Mu Wanru and Yin Shishir were left in the corridor. Yin Shishir reluctantly looked at Xiaoyichen's receding figure. Mu Wanru suddenly stood in front of her and looked at her arrogantly. "Miss Yin, we meet again." "Hello." Yin Shishir stepped back slightly. Her sharp aura was too piercing, so she had no choice but to keep a distance from her. "How have you been these past few years, Miss Yin?" Mu Wanru's thin lips curled into a cold smile. Her lukewarm greeting made Yin Shishir feel strange. "Do you still remember me? I'm the young madam of the Mu family. We've met before." As Mu Wanru spoke, she approached her step by step. However, it seems like Miss Yin has completely forgotten the contents of the contract. His cold and mournful questioning caused people to tremble in fear. The last clause of the contract stated that Yin Shishir would lose custody of the child forever. Chapter 77. Yin Shishir's face was pale as she said slowly, "I haven't forgotten any of the terms in the contract. Madam Mu, don't worry. I won't appear in my Know Your Son's life." "Really? You mean what you say?" "Yes." Yin Shishir gritted her teeth, her heart bleeding. Mu Wanru's face finally revealed a smile, but it was extremely cold. "Then I hope that Miss Yin will not forget what you said today, and will not go against the terms of the contract. If I find out that you've come to disturb my son and me again, I'll make you regret it." She inched closer to Yin Shishir and warned her coldly. However, when they were so close, Mu Wanru could easily see the hickeys on her neck, and her gaze turned cold. Last night, Muyaja did not return. She had sent someone to investigate, and in the end, she saw him enter a suite in the hotel's CCTV. In the morning, Muyaja, who was dressed in a suit, left first. In the afternoon, a girl in a dress followed Muyaja's assistant out. Although her head was lowered and her face could not be seen clearly, regardless of whether it was her figure or her back view, it was exactly the same as this woman. At this moment, looking at the ambiguous hickeys on her neck, Mu Wanru could not help but let her imagination run wild. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became, and the veins on her forehead bulged. *TCH. She raised her hand and was about to slap her. However, a childish voice came from behind her. "Mommy, I've been waiting for you for a long time." For some reason, Xiaoyichen had returned and coincidentally saw Mu Wanru raising her hand to slap her. He raised his voice to stop her. Mu Wanru was shocked. When she turned around to face the little munchkin, her face was full of gentleness. "Yichen, didn't you ask Auntie Gui to bring you home? Mommy, aren't you coming home for dinner?" Xiaoyichen sized her up with a strange expression. She didn't know if he was protecting Yin Shishir or for some other reason, but he said calmly, "Daddy said that he'll come back for dinner tonight." Hearing this, Mu Wanru didn't want to waste any more time on Yin Shishir. She would have plenty of opportunity to verify the facts of what had happened last night. However, she would not let Yin Shishir off so easily. Sooner or later, he would make her disappear completely from the capital. This thorn must be completely eradicated. Thus Mu Wanru turned around and glared at her fiercely. Then, she picked up Xiaoyichen and left with him. Yin Shishir couldn't come back to her senses for a while. So this child's name is Yichen. For a moment, too many complex emotions surged in her heart. They were sour and bitter. It was such a heart-wrenching thing to see her own flesh and blood calling another woman mommy. However, she still remembered the terms of the contract from 6 years ago. After giving birth to this son, they were destined to be strangers for the rest of their lives. It was cruel, but she had to do it. The Mu family was big and had a big business. How could she compete with them? She didn't have the right to be this child's mommy. Yin Shirshir took a deep breath, threw her thoughts to the back of her mind, and rushed to the dinner. On the roadside, a Bentley was parked at the intersection. This was a global limited edition car. One look and one could tell that the owner of this car was either rich or respectable. There was a black leather sofa and an expensive Saxon carpet under the feet. At the side, a small wine cabinet displayed expensive wine and vodka. Under the light, they shone brightly. Chapter 78. A man was sitting upright beside him. He was none other than the board representative of Laji Holdings, Lee Hanlon. Lee Hanlon's facial features were very beautiful, handsome, and elegant. However, his expression was a little ugly, especially when he looked at the 6 or 7-year-old child beside him who was extremely mature. His expression became even more strange. He really did not expect that one of the most mysterious shareholders of Laji Holdings was really a 6 or 7-year-old child. He did not believe it at first. How could it be? When he was 6 or 7 years old, he was still playing with mud. What was wrong with children nowadays? Had their genes mutated? He was so small and looked like he had just been weaned for a few years, yet he was already worth hundreds of millions. Laji Holdings used to be a toy company in Europe that was on the verge of bankruptcy. A year ago, it was acquired by Hurricane Group. In a short period of time, it rose rapidly and became a world-class toy factory. Once Laji Holdings toys were listed, they became popular all over the world. All the children were proud to own a toy from Laji Holdings. Who would have thought that the toys that those children loved so much were actually developed by a 6-year-old child? Who would have thought that the biggest shareholder of Laji Holdings was actually a little boy who had not even finished kindergarten? F***ck. It was too surreal. Who would believe it? However, that was the truth. This shareholder was always mysterious and unpredictable. No one had ever seen his face. He only knew that after Laji Holdings was acquired by Hurricane Group, this shareholder was given power and 60% of the company's shares by Hurricane Group. He was the chief designer of the company's system that was still in development. Until 2 hours ago, when he was summoned by this mysterious shareholder and rushed over, he only saw a little kid who was not even as tall as his waist. When Yun Tianyu revealed his identity to him, Lee Hanlon lost his composure and screamed in disbelief. It was only when the little boy took out his voice changer that he verified his identity. If his real identity was revealed to the public, the board of directors would go crazy. Lee Hanlon was still a little confused. Yu took a straw and sipped on his cola. He lowered the car window slightly and caught a glimpse of a familiar figure from the corner of his eye. It was extremely familiar. Rather than saying that it was familiar, it would be better to say that it was exactly the same. At the end of his line of sight was a little boy in the same grade as him. A woman was holding his hand as they walked to the front of the Lincoln, and the woman carried him into the car. The little boy was wearing a small suit, and his back was cold. He could only vaguely see his exquisite facial features, which were extremely similar to his, except that his eyebrows were extremely cold. Yin Tianyu's eyes widened in a daze as he furrowed his brows. Why did this boy look exactly like him? The Lincoln started moving slowly. Yin Tianyu immediately ordered, "Follow that Lincoln in front." Director Yin. Lee Hanlon quickly corrected himself and said respectfully, "What's wrong?" "Keep up," Yin Tianyu ordered in a tone that brooked no objection. "Yes." The Bentley quickly started, stepped on the accelerator, and caught up with the Lincoln. Following closely behind, the distance between them was not far. Yin Tianyu, who was sitting in the back seat, slowly asked, "Have you found out anything about the person I asked you to investigate a few days ago?" "Yes, all the information is here." Lee Hanlon respectfully handed over the materials. Yin Tianyu casually took the thick stack of information and flipped through it expressionlessly. The more he read, the more solemn his eyes became. The Lincoln drove into the capital's wealthy district, Shermao Champagne Lake. This was where the most expensive villas in the capital were located. The people who lived here were of noble status and were worth hundreds of millions. Rumor had it that the average price of a villa here was 500,000 yuan per square meter. It was so expensive that it made people speechless. The Lincoln limousine drove in without any obstructions. The Bentley was stopped at the entrance, however. Yin Shanshi was heavily guarded, and ordinary people were not allowed to enter. The security guard stopped the car. Li Hanlin lowered the window and was about to speak when the security guard at the entrance saw Yin Tianyu. His expression immediately became respectful. So young Master Mu is back. The license plate was unfamiliar, but the security guard mistook Yin Tianyu for the Mu family's young master. Naturally, he did not dare to slight him. Who dared to stop the Mu family's young master's car? Many doubts flashed across Yin Tianyu's heart when he heard this, but his face remained calm as he greeted, "Hello, uncle." Chapter 79. The security guard was flattered and quickly greeted, "Hello, young master. Please come in, young master." His impression of the Mu family's young master had always been arrogant and indifferent. He would never greet a mere security guard. Now he was truly shocked. The security guard let them in, and the Bentley slowly drove through the entrance. When the Lincoln came to a stop in front of a quaint and luxurious villa, Li Hanlin instructed the chauffeur to pull over. "Director Yin, what's going on?" Li Hanlin asked cautiously. Yin Tianyu shushed him, indicating for him not to speak. He rolled down the car window and leaned against it to look out. When the little boy alighted from the car, the servant at the entrance hurried to welcome him. His brows furrowed slightly. There were too many questions in his mind at that moment. Mu Wanru alighted from the car as well. When she looked up, she saw Mu Yaja standing at the entrance. He was tall and imposing, but without his suit, he did not seem to be the empire's elite in the business world. His snow-white shirt accentuated his exquisite features. The night was bleak and hazy. All the floor lights in the villa's courtyard were lit. The atmosphere was warm. Mu Yaja squatted down slightly and smiled gently at Mu Yichen. He rarely smiled. Usually he did not smile and always gave others the impression of coldness. However, it was only in front of Xiao Yichen that he would show this rare tenderness. His beautiful almond-shaped eyes were deep and mesmerizing, and his sexy thin lips curved into a doting smile. It was simply irresistible. A father's warmth was like a harbor. It made one feel incomparably at ease. He flew to North America the day before yesterday to attend a meeting, so he hurried back home after returning. Xiao Yichen was originally angry with him. He waited for him the whole night, but he did not return. His daddy actually did not keep his promise. Accompanying him for dinner, doing his homework, and not talking about work at home were the 3 rules, but he did not abide by them. However, under Mu Yaja's doting gaze, the accumulated haze in Xiao Yichen's heart finally dissipated. The little guy rushed into the man's arms and wrapped his little hands around Mu Yaja's elegant neck. He muttered, "Daddy." Yin Tianyu, who was sitting in the car, stared at her in a daze. His eyes were unnoticeably moist. However, when he saw Mu Yaja take out a beautifully wrapped gift from behind him, Xiao Yichen opened it in surprise. It was the remote-controlled racing car that he had been looking forward to. It was Laji's best-selling toy for the new season, and many children dreamed of owning one. Wow! This is Laji TK01 Smart Remote-Controlled Racing Car. Thank you, Daddy. I'm so happy. Mu Wanru slowly walked over, squatted down beside Xiao Yichen, and kissed his forehead. "Baby, let Daddy assemble it with you, okay?" "Alright." Mu Yaja smiled dotingly. "Baby, have you forgiven Daddy, Daddy is the best. Yichen loves Daddy the most." This heartwarming scene undoubtedly stung Yin Tianyu's eyes. It turned out that a father was such a warm existence. The TK01 Smart Remote-Controlled Racing Car was a product that Yu had painstakingly designed. When it was put into production, the online pre-orders had exceeded hundreds of thousands. The one he saw at the mall that time was just a domestic imitation of a remote-controlled racing car. He was only researching it, but he did not expect his mommy to mistakenly think that he liked it, and insisted on buying it. In fact, he did not like toys. He was no longer interested in these things, which were somewhat childish to him. What he envied was having a daddy who could patiently assemble and play with him. What he yearned for was merely companionship. Chapter 80. What he yearned for was merely companionship. Yin Tianyu's little hand gripped the windowsill, his eyes filled with desolation. He did not even know what to do. All these years he had thought that he did not have a father, but now his father was right in front of him. Just like how Yin Shishir would always picture a child she had never met before in her heart. More than once he had pictured his father's silhouette in his mind. He must be very tall, with good-looking eyes and a tall nose. He must look dashing in a suit. That was because his kindergarten teacher always praised him for his good looks. His father must be even more dashing. In fact, this man was really handsome. Even he was mesmerized by him. In his heart, he was also looking forward to it. How great would it have been if he had been his father 6 years ago? Unfortunately, Yin Shishir's gentle words suddenly echoed in Yu Yu's mind. You will never leave mommy, right? Yes. He would never leave mommy, never. He was mommy's little god of warmth. He wanted to protect mommy and not let anyone hurt her. Even if it was his biological father, he would never allow it. Yu lowered his eyelids to hide the longing that flashed across his eyes as he slowly rolled up the car window. Muyaja carried Xiaoyichen and dotingly caressed his little head. From the corner of his eye, he caught sight of an unfamiliar Bentley. He followed his line of sight and saw a Bentley slowly driving away. He could vaguely see a lonely silhouette through the car window. A child of about 6 years old was sitting in the back seat lazily with his head propped up. His eyes were downcast and he looked a little lonely. His heart skipped a beat as if he had lost something important. Even his breathing stopped for an inch. Xiaoyichen raised his head and saw his father looking into the distance in a daze. He frowned and asked, "Daddy, what's wrong?" Nothing." Muyaja lowered his head and curled his lips, but he was clearly distracted. The banquet was arranged in a VIP private room. Yin Shishir had just opened the door when she accidentally bumped into a lively scene. He saw Han Jingyi sitting in the arms of a fat middle-aged man, hitting the man's shoulder and acting coquettishly. Her shoulders were slightly exposed, and her attire was sexy and alluring. The circle of people sitting around her had a tacit understanding of each other. They just sat on the side and chatted wittily, as if they were already used to this erotic scene. In the circle there were many unrestrained scenes. They were already used to it. The middle-aged man who was hugging Han Jingyi was the big boss of a real estate development company, Yin Liangxiong. He had a strong net worth and quite a bit of status. He was the one who had raised Han Jingyi to the top. Yin Shishir was not used to such a scene, but she forced herself to fit in as soon as possible and sat beside Han Jingyi. However, the moment he walked in, the atmosphere in the room changed slightly. Originally, Han Jingyi was a young model who had graduated from an art school. Although she was inexperienced, she knew the rules of the entertainment industry and knew the rules. With her good looks, she signed a contract with Huanyu Entertainment. However, after a year of debut, she did not receive any resources and remained unknown. Chapter 81. Yen Liangxiong was obsessed with beauty, and he especially liked young models like Han Jingyi, who had a slim figure and a sweet appearance. Han Jingyi naturally catered to his fancy. She took part in a few reality shows and made a small name for herself. Yen Liangxiong had a lot of assets. He was one of the biggest investors in Huanyu Entertainment's huge youth film, The Green Apple. Han Jingyi's manager was well aware of the unspoken rules of the entertainment industry, so she made an appointment with Yen Liangxiong. She hoped that Han Jingyi could use this opportunity to whisper something in his ear. If she could be the female lead of The Green Apple, her day of success would be just around the corner. Therefore, at the dinner party, Han Jingyi was full of thoughts about this rich and overbearing big boss. This Yen Liangxiong was simply overjoyed by her coaxing. Seeing that the female lead was about to be finalized, Han Jingyi thought. However, when Yin Shishir entered the private room, everyone's eyes fell on her. At this moment, no one was looking at how Han Jingyi was acting coquettishly. Even Yen Liangxiong, who had been aroused by Han Jingyi a moment ago, had lost interest in the young model in his arms. He actually had evil thoughts about Yin Shishir. He had never seen such a pure and otherworldly girl in the world. This is... Yen Liangxiong's voice was soft, as if he was afraid of scaring this fairy-like girl. Han Jingyi's face was full of embarrassment. She had finally coaxed Yen Liangxiong into beaming with joy, but in the blink of an eye, this man's thoughts were no longer with her. She was indignant. She looked at Yin Shishir angrily and said disdainfully, "Oh, this is my new assistant. She's new and doesn't know any better. Why didn't she propose a toast when she came? Are you looking down on President Yen?" When Yin Shishir heard this, Her eyes were filled with panic. She hurriedly said, I can't drink. She couldn't hold her liquor and was drunk after 2 glasses. She had never experienced such a scene. Her voice was low, like a lost deer. She was very guilty, but because of her delicate voice, it was very pleasant to the ears. Liang Xiong looked at her tender and white face, and because of that delicate and lovable voice, his imagination ran wild. A girl like Yin Shirshir, pure and innocent, was rarely seen in the entertainment industry. Even if there were pure girls, they would be tainted by this big vat of dye. Otherwise, they would be faking it. However, a man could tell at a glance whether a woman was pretending or not. Especially a veteran in love like Yen Liangxiong, he was even more certain that this girl was a rare and precious stunner. This girl was beautiful and had a delicate temperament. What was even more commendable was that she lacked the exaggeration of those female artistes in the circle and had a pure and refined air about her. If he could capture her, then those little wild models in the entertainment industry, who couldn't wait to throw themselves at his door and use all sorts of schemes to climb into his bed, wouldn't even be able to enter his eyes. Just thinking about it made his body heat up. Yen Liangxiong's heart could not help but itch. Yen Liangxiong looked at Yin Shirshir with reddened eyes. You can't drink. That's an excuse, right? As Yen Liangxiong said this, he actually pushed Han Jingyi to the side. Then he leaned closer to her and sized her up with an extremely strange gaze. That explicit gaze made Yin Shirshir's scalp tingle. Even so, she still put on an excellent professional integrity. She cursed this old pervert in her heart and looked down. Chapter 82. I really can't drink. I'm allergic to alcohol. 1 glass and I'll get drunk. Just drink a little. Yen Liangxiong was obviously unhappy with her refusal. She can't drink? That's right. It would be much easier to deal with this woman when she was drunk. Han Jingyi, who was pushed aside, was so angry that her face turned red. Who found her an assistant? She was obviously the reincarnation of a vixen who was here to seduce men. Yin Shirshir was shocked by the scene of her being forced to drink. It wasn't that she had never entertained clients before, but she had always used tea as a substitute for alcohol. No one had ever forced her to drink. Now that she was facing this situation, she was a little stunned. Han Jingyi saw that Yen Liangxiong's thoughts were all on Yin Shirshir, and she hated her to the extreme. Why was this new assistant so beautiful? Look, it had only been a few minutes since she entered the room. Was she trying to steal the souls of all the men in the room? She must have been a vixen in her previous life, right? She was cursing viciously in her heart, but she forced a smile on her face. President Yen, why do you have to lower yourself to the same level as a mere assistant? It's fine if she doesn't know how to drink. She's not even willing to give you face, President Yen. She's obviously looking down on you. Please calm down. I'll fire her right away. She originally thought that by fanning the flames, Yen Liangxiong would be furious at Yin Shirshir for not knowing what was good for her. However, in the next moment, Yen Liangxiong's reaction left her dumbfounded. Fire her for? This little assistant is so fun. She hasn't seen the world yet. She'll get used to it after seeing more of it. As he spoke, he suddenly thought of something and said meaningfully, Jingyi, didn't you want the resources for the green apple? If you can get your assistant to drink a few glasses with me, I'll make the final decision on the female lead. Han Jingyi almost vomited blood when she heard that. She was about to vomit blood. This movie could be said to be a star-studded movie. Many A-list female stars were lining up to be cast, but none of them were able to make it. After much persuasion, she was lucky enough to hook up with a rich big boss who happened to be the investor of this movie. She was already wild with joy. In order to get the resources for the female lead, she had pestered him many times. She had tried to coax and pester him several times, but to no avail. How could he just let this Yin Shirshir accompany him for a few drinks and seal the deal? No matter how stupid a person was, they knew what Yen Liangxiong was thinking about Yin Shirshir. Han Jingyi was so angry that she wanted to flip the table. The smile on her face was almost distorted. She had racked her brains to get him and tried her best to climb into his bed, but in the end, she couldn't even compare to a few glasses of wine from an unknown Yin Shirshir. It was obvious that he wanted to send her flying. However, on second thought, Han Jingyi realized that if a few glasses of wine could be exchanged for the female lead role, it would be a waste of effort. Since Yan Liangxiong wanted to dump her, so what? She wasn't willing to suck up to him. The entertainment industry was so big, so how could there not be many rich bosses? She could just look for another sugar daddy. With this role, she would be able to get in touch with higher-level aristocrats. This assistant could exchange a few glasses of wine for resources that other female stars couldn't even dream of. This was perfect. As she thought about it, Han Jingyi persuaded. I say, newcomer, you should drink a few glasses with President Yin. Take it as giving President Yin face. If he's happy, he won't treat you badly. With that, Han Jingyi mouthed to her. If you don't drink, I'll fire you. Chapter 83. Can I have a glass of wine? I can only drink one glass. Yin Shishir said carefully. Yan Liangxiong liked to look at her tender expression and laughed heartily. Okay. One glass it is. You have to drink it all in one go, or it won't count. Yin Shishir gritted her teeth and made up her mind. She picked up the glass of wine in front of her and drank it all in one go. With just one glass, she choked until her face and ears turned red, and a blush appeared on her ears. Woo! This wine was extremely spicy. Her eyes turned red, and her body suddenly heated up. Looking at her flushed face, Yan Liangxiong's eyes were about to stare straight. That burning gaze never left her body, and it stared at her until she felt like she was being pricked by needles. At this moment, footsteps came from outside the door. Knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door elegantly, and the door of the private room was slowly pushed open. A cold gust of wind blew in through the door. Yin Shishir was tipsy, and she was a little dizzy. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of someone walking in. Looking in the direction of the sound, she saw a tall figure walking into the private room. She was stunned. What greeted her eyes was a pair of black high-grade handmade leather shoes. The sound of the shoes hitting the ground was crisp and powerful. The man's steps were elegant and calm. He wore a pair of straight and slender trousers, paired with a dark red high-end shirt, and his fair skin accentuated a taboo charm of beauty. His gentle and refined temperament was immediately revealed. Looking carefully, the man's slightly open collar revealed two jade-like collarbones. A platinum necklace hung on his beautiful and delicate neck. It was a simple outfit, but it was stunning. One had to know that not every man could make red look so coquettish and beautiful. Yin Shishir was a little drunk. She felt that her neck was a little stiff, so she couldn't raise her head to look at the man's face. It was only when he came closer that she saw his face. The nobility and arrogance in his gestures, and the trace of melancholy in his eyes. This was the first feeling that this man gave her. His fair face had been washed away. His facial features were deep and exquisite, with distinct edges and corners. It was as if he had been carefully carved by the gods. Elegant eyebrows, long and narrow eyes, and sexy lips. This kind of beauty was difficult to describe with words. So much so that everything in the world was as insignificant as dust in front of him. He looked very young, clearly only around 25 years old, but he gave off an extremely mature and steady feeling. That kind of maturity was not an appearance, but a bearing that came from his bones, which did not match his age. She took a deep look at him, and felt that there was a hint of the vicissitudes and coldness that belonged to his youthful appearance. It was complicated, deep, and hard to figure out. Her delicate face stunned Yin Shishir. How could she not be familiar with this cold man in front of her? In the current entertainment industry, Gu Xingze was definitely one of the best in terms of qualifications and net worth. He had created an era that belonged only to him, Gu Xingze. At the mention of this man, his glorious background was the center of attention. He had been discovered by talent scouts when he was studying abroad at the age of 15, because of his stunning good looks. He was invited to sign with an entertainment company, and then he made his debut with a record. His first record sold over 10 million copies, and his first movie was a Hollywood blockbuster. He became famous overnight and won various awards at the Oscars Film Festival. After that, his global popularity soared. Chapter 84. There was no shortage of handsome male artists in the entertainment industry. However, in such a dirty and complicated environment, one would be eliminated sooner or later if they did not know how to fight for it. However, Gu Xingze was a miracle. It was not only because of his enviable handsome face, but also because of his exceptional acting talent and magnetic voice. Gu Xingzi became an instant hit from the moment he debuted. From a handsome and delicate young idol with immature acting and singing skills to a superstar who had dabbled in all three fields of film, television, and singing, he had 10 platinum records and was even known as the box office bomb at the beginning of the century. Whether it was his acting or singing skills, he had already honed them to perfection. In the 10 years since his debut, Gu Xingzi had become an immortal legend in the entertainment industry. He was also the only person who could represent the domestic entertainment industry, and was a milestone in the domestic entertainment industry. The entertainment industry was filled with waves and sand, but his status as a superstar had not been shaken for 10 years. His journey to stardom had been so smooth that many people were jealous of him. There were countless legends about him. In this industry, 10 years was an era. However, the end of Gu Xingzi's era was still far away. But why would he appear here? Once he saw him, Yan Liangxiong immediately stood up and greeted him warmly. He shook his hand. His assistant, who was standing beside him, quickly stepped forward and apologized profusely. "President Yan, I'm so sorry. Haha, it's rush hour now. I'm sorry to have delayed you on the way." Everyone knew that Yan Liangxiong was a person who had a strong sense of time. He had always been prejudiced against people who were late. No one was an exception. It was already late. Gu Xingzi was stuck in traffic when he received his call. He had arranged to meet Gu Xingzi at a hotel to discuss the female lead. Gu Xingzi was also one of the film's producers. Although he was engrossed in memorizing the script and had a hard time coming up with his lines, he did not want to neglect this hard-to-please boss and hurried to meet him. However, he was still a little late. "Director Yan, why did you ask to meet me here? Is there a reason?" Gu Xingzi was puzzled. The handover had already been settled, the script had been planned, the actors had been decided, and the sponsors had been decided. What else was there to rush him over in such a hurry? "Haha. Xingzi, let's sit down and talk. Let me introduce you to someone." Yan Liangxiong turned sideways and invited him to take a seat. Only then did Gu Xingzi notice that there was another woman sitting in the private room. Her posture was elegant and her makeup was exquisite. However, there was no aura around her. There was admiration and yearning in her eyes as she looked at him. Han Jingyi wanted to be his female lead even in her dreams. Although she had debuted for more than a year, and had been in the industry for a long time, this was her first time meeting the Heavenly King. The real person was even more dazzling and handsome than the photos in the magazines. Han Jingyi didn't drink much, but she felt a little drunk. Gu Xingzi had the kind of temperament that could intoxicate any woman. How many women yearned for a male god like him? Seeing this, Gu Xingzi could not help but feel suspicious. He looked at Yan Liangxiong meaningfully and waited for him to introduce her. Out of the corner of his eye, his gaze landed on Yin Shirshir. At that moment, she was already very drunk, but she stubbornly pursed her lips. Her fingertips were clenched tightly on the table. He did not know what she was angry about. Chapter 85. Han Jingyi wanted to be his female lead even in her dreams. Although she had debuted for more than a year, and had been in the industry for a long time, this was her first time seeing the Heavenly King in person. He was even more dazzling and handsome in person than in the photos in the magazines. Han Jingyi did not drink much, but she felt a little drunk. Gu Xingzi had a temperament that could make women drunk. How many women yearned for such a male god? Gu Xingzi saw this and could not help but feel suspicious. He looked at Yan Liangxiong meaningfully, waiting for him to introduce her. Out of the corner of his eye, his gaze landed on Yin Shirshir. At this moment, she was already very drunk, but she stubbornly pursed her lips. Her fingertips were clasped tightly on the table, and he did not know what she was angry about. Her eyes were red, and there was a clear mist at the bottom of her eyes. The emotions on her face were constantly changing. Forbearance, stubbornness, embarrassment. At that moment, she seemed to have stunned his gaze. For some reason, a scene from the script seemed to appear in front of Gu Xingzi's eyes. The female lead and the male lead had an argument. They got drunk in the bar, one glass after another, and cried bitterly in the noisy music. In the end, they stubbornly endured it. At that moment, they restrained themselves and their hearts broke without a trace. Yin Xiaochuan. This girl was Yin Xiaochuan. Just as he was stunned, Yin Liangxiong interrupted his daze. Xingze, let me introduce you. This is Huanyu Entertainment's new artiste Han Jingyi. Yin Liangxiong smiled and leaned closer to him, whispering, Xingze, you've met her. She's pretty, right? I'm sure she has a bright future ahead of her. Please promote her in the future. In other words, was he going to support her? Gu Xingze frowned slightly. His thin lips parted, but he did not say anything in the end. Han Jingyi looked shy and slowly reached out her hand to him. However, Gu Xingze did not even look at her. He had always been proud and arrogant. He never gave face to people he did not approve of. It just so happened that there were quite a few people in the entertainment industry who fell for such a proud and aloof personality. Speaking of which, no matter how beautiful this Han Jingyi was, she was at most an unknown newcomer, right? There was no spiritual energy in her temperament. She was like an empty puppet. What ability did she have to make Yin Liangxiong praise her so much when she had just debuted? Could it be that he had used the unspoken rules to get to her position? There was contempt in Gu Xingze's eyes. Beautiful? Is there something wrong with General Manager Yan's taste? Gu Xingze's mouth was full of poisonous thorns. With her looks, even if President Yan likes her, she won't be able to enter my eyes. President Yan, don't think that you can promote the woman you've slept with just because you want to. It's not up to you to decide the female lead of this movie. You know, I'm also one of the producers of this movie. Yin Liangxiong was taken aback, and his expression turned a little awkward. Ridiculing the woman he was playing with in front of him, more or less put him on the spot. Gu Xingze had been in the industry for many years. He had a strong backing and a high net worth. Naturally, he did not dare to offend him. However, this kind of humiliation also made him lose face. When Han Jingyi heard this, she was as stiff as a rock. The male idol in her heart actually ridiculed and humiliated her in front of so many people, making her lose face. Chapter 86. Xingze. Don't call me Xingze. Do we know each other well? Gu Xingze looked at her coldly. Yin Liangxiong could not put down his pride and immediately gave her a look. Han Jingyi quickly raised her wine glass and toasted him. I'm sorry, Mr. Gu. I don't know how I have offended you. If I have offended you in any way, I hope that you will forgive me. However, her pitiful apology only made Gu Xingze more disgusted. Don't. The wine you're toasting is dirty. Han Jingyi was stunned. She felt as if she had been smashed to pieces. Earlier, she had heard rumors that Gu Xingze was as arrogant as a king. Sometimes he would not give face to those he detested, and his mouth would be poisonous. Now, she had experienced it for herself. Moreover, President Yan, is there something wrong with your taste? This woman is tacky and smells of rouge. How can she play the role of the pure Yin Xiaochuan? First of all, her appearance is not right. If I were to act with her, I'm afraid that I would vomit. Gu Xingze continued to use his poisonous tongue. Han Jingyi could no longer sit still. Why was this Gu Xingze's mouth full of poisonous thorns? He was mocking her as if she was worthless. There were so many female celebrities in the entertainment industry. How many of them relied on their own abilities to get to where they were? Didn't they rely on flattery? She was so angry that she was about to cry. Gu Xingze snorted when he saw her trying to act pitiful. She wanted to be his female lead and climb up his social ladder? Dream on. Why? Do you still feel wronged? Gu Xingze's face was cold. If you know what's good for you, you'd better quit the production of the green apple. Otherwise, I won't be in the mood to work when I see you. After a pause, his gaze fell on Yin Shirshir, who looked a little confused. He was stunned. What's your name? Yin Shirshir saw that Gu Xingze was asking for her name. Although her mind was still in a daze, she sat up straight and said nervously, Hello. My name is Yin Shirshir. I'm Miss Han Jingyi's assistant. Are you her assistant? Gu Xingze was a little surprised. He had thought that she was a newcomer who had just signed a contract. She was pure and beautiful, untainted by filth, and very much in line with the temperament of the female lead in his heart. The Yin Xiaochuan in his heart was exactly the same as her. Gu Xingze shook his head. His beautiful eyes curved and a warm smile appeared on his face. She's so clean and pretty. Why did she become the assistant of a nobody model? How useless. I also just found a job today. Gu Xingze glanced at Han Jingyi, whose face was getting darker and darker, and sneered. She won't be able to become famous. You'll have no future if you follow her. As for you, you're so much prettier than her. If you enter the entertainment industry, you'll definitely be popular. Han Jingyi's eyes widened in shock. How could Gu Xingze? With such a beautiful mouth, he had degraded her to the bottom of the valley, and then praised an unknown assistant to the sky? Where was she supposed to put her face? Yin Shishir had not yet recovered from the alcohol. When she heard this, she hurriedly waved her hand and said, I can't. Why not? Gu Xingze smiled elegantly and said slowly, Your temperament is just right for the female lead in my heart. Bang! Han Jingyi could not take it anymore. She slammed the table and stood up. She looked at Gu Xingze with a gloomy face and sneered. Gu Xingze, have you said enough? Chapter 87. She had drunk some wine earlier and was a little tipsy. With Gu Xingze flattering her and belittling her, she was naturally unhappy, especially after being belittled by her idol. With the alcohol in her system, she decided to let it all out. Isn't she just a new little assistant? How can she be compared to me? Han Jingyi was angry. Every girl had a dream, and her dream was Gu Xingze. When Gu Xingze debuted, he had always been her idol because of his handsome image and superb acting skills. She had always seen Gu Xingze as her beacon of hope. Hence, when she turned 18, her dream became even more passionate. She swore to herself that she would enter the entertainment industry and become a celebrity. That way, she would have more chances to see Gu Xingze. Hence, she hardened her heart and took her parents' savings to travel around Korea. So what if she was not born well? Nowadays, the plastic surgery industry was booming. She could get double eyelids, a delicate nose, and a good figure. She signed with a modeling agency and easily entered the entertainment industry. For the sake of Gu Xingze, she almost went crazy and did everything she could. Even though she did not have the talent for acting, she used some underhanded methods to gain some fame. She was getting closer and closer to her dream. Gu Xingze, on the other hand, destroyed this hope of hers. How could this little assistant, who came out of nowhere, compare to her? You are Yin Shishir, right? You don't have to come to work tomorrow. You're fired. Han Jingyi lashed out at Yin Shishir in exasperation, venting all her anger on the latter. Yin Shishir was stunned. She felt that she had been unjustly implicated. Gu Xingze smiled and said, Coincidentally, I am lacking an assistant. Shishir, are you willing to be my assistant? Before he finished speaking, everyone at the table was in a mess. Who was Gu Xingze? He was a superstar in the entertainment industry. He was arrogant and had a net worth of hundreds of millions. His popularity was at its peak. The line of people who wanted to be his assistant stretched from here to Hollywood. Many people were racking their brains just to be one step closer to their idol. Now he was asking an unknown girl if she was willing to be his assistant? This world was simply too fantastical. Yin Shishir was also stunned. Are you not willing? I will pay you a high salary. Also, I am very gentle with my subordinates. I am much easier to serve than this woman. Yin Shishir heard this and said, I am willing. Gu Xingze heard this and his eyes filled with gentleness. Then you can come to my studio to officially report tomorrow. As he said this, he stood up gracefully and said to Yan Liangxiong, who was already stunned, It is getting late. President Yan, I will not keep you company. Everyone was stunned. Gu Xingze pushed the door open and was about to leave. When he turned around, he saw Yin Shishir still sitting there in a daze. He said helplessly, My little assistant, it is so late. Shall I take you home? Oh. Yin Shishir was a little dizzy. Superstar Gu wanted to take her home? Would his fans throw darts at her and spit at her? Yin Shishir stood up obediently and left with Gu Xingze. Yan Liangxiong came back to his senses and spat angrily. He was naturally unhappy to see the beauty in his mouth being snatched away from him. Chapter 88. There was someone who was even more unhappy than her. Han Jingyi said, Humph, how am I not as good as this B***tch? I think she must be the reincarnation of a vixen, born to seduce men. Humph. Forget it, Han Jingyi. You should think of a way out. Yin Liangxiong sneered. After Gu Xing's words, he couldn't help but think that this woman in front of him was just an ordinary woman. Compared to Yin Shishir, she was nothing. She was like a wildflower by the roadside. He didn't like her. What do you mean? Han Jingyi was confused. You're still a newbie in Huanyu. How dare you go against Gu Xingzi? So what? Han Jingyi had already given up on Gu Xingzi. Being mocked by her idol was like being stabbed in the heart. I think you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Don't you know? Gu Xingzi holds 20% of Huanyu Entertainment's shares. He's one of the company's major shareholders. Even I have to act according to his wishes. Who do you think you are? How dare you slam the table with him? Don't even think about working in this industry anymore. Wait for your contract to be terminated tomorrow. What? Gu Xingzi is a major shareholder of Huanyu? Oh my god. Han Jingyi gritted her teeth. She was so regretful that her intestines were turning green. President Yan, what should I do? I don't want to be fired. Han Jingyi cried and begged. I can't save you. Look at you. You have big boobs but no brains. You don't think before you speak. You're making me unhappy. Yan Liangxiong waved his hand and left. Just as he left the hotel, Gu Xingzi turned around. Yin Shishir walked unsteadily and bumped into his chest. Ouch. She rubbed her forehead. She was a little dizzy. Gu Xingzi pinched Yin Shishir's nose and said helplessly, Silly girl, why don't you thank me for saving you from the tiger's den? What do you mean? Yin Shishir was still a little confused. Naturally, she didn't understand the meaning of her words. You're not in the industry, so you don't know what kind of person Yan Liangxiong is. He leaned over and looked into her eyes. His breath smelled like orchids. He likes girls like you. You're so pure, innocent, and tender. If you didn't come out with me just now, you would have been eaten alive by him. Are you scared? Gu Xingzi saw that she was in a daze. He couldn't help but love this girl who was as pure as a little white rabbit. He rubbed her head affectionately. This industry is like this. Materialistic people like you will be eaten alive sooner or later. Yin Shishir was still a little shaken. She said gratefully, Thank you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I would have been in deep trouble today. If it weren't for him, she really didn't know how to face Yan Liangxiong, who wanted to eat her alive. Let's go home then. Gu Xingzi patted her shoulder. What time should I report for work tomorrow, then? She asked with a smile as she trailed behind him. You really want to be my assistant? Gu Xingzi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's very hard to be my assistant. Not only do you have to do public relations for me, but you also have to deal with paparazzi. What's worse is that you have to face situations like today. Can you handle it? Yin Shishir suddenly realized that being an assistant wasn't an easy task. Then you asked me if I was willing to be your assistant. Chapter 89. I was helping you get out of trouble. Gu Xingzi said matter-of-factly. You must be a very sensible girl, right? Gu Xingzi looked at her and suddenly said, You must have suffered a lot just now, but I didn't see you shed a single tear. I'm used to it. Yin Shishir's shoulders shrunk a little when he touched the most vulnerable part of her heart. Gu Xingzi leaned over slightly and smoothed her bangs. His lips curled into a gentle smile. But you're a girl. Why do you have to be so strong? A crying child will get sweets. Yin Shishir was a little stunned. Since she was young, she had been very sensible and strong. She was even overly stubborn. Even if she had suffered a lot, she had never said a word. She had endured it all by herself. But the more she endured, the more she had to bear. She pursed her lips and smiled at Gu Xingzi. Thank you. I understand what you mean. Yes. You're a girl. You have to make good use of your advantages. Gu Xingzi suddenly thought of something, and a smile flashed across his eyes. It's a pity that you're my assistant. But with your talent, it's a waste if you don't act. Huanyu is investing in a movie called The Green Apple. They're holding a nationwide audition for the female lead. Do you want to try? Yin Shishir's eyes flashed when she heard this. She couldn't help but struggle in her heart. This is the invitation. Tomorrow is the last audition. I'll be there. Gu Xingzi handed her a small and exquisite letter. This letter was more exquisite than a normal invitation letter. It was inlaid with gold, and had a piece of satin lace. It was a first-class invitation letter, and there was only one of it. Gu Xingzi gave it to her. It went without saying that he valued and appreciated her. Outside the window it was raining. Gu Xingzi's assistant rushed over. He was stunned when he saw a thin girl beside him. Xingzi, this is… Oh. Gu Xingzi didn't know how to introduce her. Yin Shishir was a little dizzy because of the wine, but she still forced herself to stay awake and smiled politely. Hello, my surname is Yin Shishir. Oh, Shishir. That's a very nice name. The assistant smiled gently. The three of them chatted for a while before heading to the parking lot. The Bentley was parked by the roadside. After waiting for a long time, Yin Tianyu finally saw his mother's figure and wanted to get out of the car to meet her. Li Hanlin immediately stopped him. Director Yin, it's raining heavily outside. You should wait in the car. Yes. I'll have to trouble you then. Li Hanlin smiled and got out of the car with an umbrella. Gu Xingzi's nanny van was parked not far from the Bentley. Just as the three of them were about to get in, a man in a suit got out of the Bentley in front of them. Miss Yin, I'm here to pick you up. Gu Xingzi looked at the man, and then at the expensive luxury car behind him. For a moment his eyes were filled with doubt. This man, who looked like a dragon among men, was very respectable. Yet when he looked at Yin Shishir, he was incomparably polite and gentle. Who was he? Why was he here to pick up Yin Shishir? It was not that he had never seen such a scene before. Many female artists in the entertainment industry looked pure and clean on the screen, but in reality, they had sugar daddies behind them. They would do anything to get ahead, be it drinking or sleeping with others. No matter what dirty methods they used, they would do anything to get ahead. He had been in this industry for many years and knew how muddy the waters were. A-list female artists often had a few sugar daddies behind them. Once one was tired of her, he would dump her to the next. Women were like commodities for him to enjoy. Chapter 90. Yin Shishir was confused. She did not know the man in front of her. Who are you? Li Hanlin's smile did not change. He leaned closer to her and said softly, Young Master Yin is waiting for you in the car. Young Master Yin, you? Yin Shishir's expression changed again and again. She looked at the car in shock and panic. However, she saw Yu leaning against the window and waving at her with a warm smile on his face. Only then did her heart calm down. Gu Xingzi, thank you. You don't have to send me off. Be careful on the road. Shishir, are you all right? Gu Xingzi was a little worried when he saw this. He did not know where this man came from, so he was naturally worried. His assistant beside him could not help but feel a little confused. What was wrong with Gu Xingzi? She had been in the entertainment industry for so many years, but she had never seen the cold and arrogant Gu Xingzi look at a woman more than once. Gu Xingzi was an ascetic handsome man. She had even doubted his sexual orientation. However, the young lady in front of him was indeed different from other women. She had delicate features and an aura that no one in the industry could compare to. I'm fine. Don't worry. Yin Shishir smiled and hurriedly followed Li Hanlin into the car. Gu Xingzi looked at her and was stunned. He then smiled helplessly. He seemed to have lost his composure today. Perhaps it was because he had seen too many dirty tricks in the entertainment industry. Now that he saw an unbelievably pure woman, he actually had some inexplicable emotions. He actually wanted to protect this purity of hers. Gu Xingzi sighed softly. He walked slowly into the nanny van and left. Yin Shishir got into the Bentley. She was stunned by the gorgeous scenery in the car. She had never sat in such a luxurious car. She had only seen it on TV. Yu, why are you? Yu rolled his eyes. Obviously, he would not tell her his true identity. If he said it out loud, he was afraid that mommy would not be able to take it. For the past 6 years, he had always played the obedient card and played the innocent role. If he told the truth, his mommy would never believe it. Mommy, this is Uncle Li. He's the principal of my kindergarten. Li Hanlin was also quick-witted and immediately followed up. Nice to meet you, Miss Yin. Nice to meet you. With a smile on his face, Li Hanlin was in disbelief. He looked at Yin Shishir with an unfathomable gaze. God, what was the background of this young and beautiful woman in front of him? She looked like a high school student who had yet to graduate. Could it be that she had saved the galaxy in her past life by giving birth to a genius like Yin Tianyu? How did she give birth? Can you tell me the trick? He also wanted to go back and do some research. He wanted to give birth to a child as smart as Yu. Li Hanlin beat his chest and stamped his feet in his heart as he looked back and forth between the mother and son with envy. He also wished he had such a considerate and warm son. Yin Shirshir smiled. Hello, Principal Li. I've been busy with work. Thank you for taking care of Yu these past 2 years. Li Hanlin's lips twitched. He was a little confused. You're too kind. Yu is so smart and has been performing well all this while. Principal? How could a principal afford to drive such a car? Yin Tianyu smiled and interrupted this topic. Principal, thank you for sending me and my mommy home today. You're welcome. Li Hanlin smiled and immediately instructed the chauffeur to start the car. The Bentley slowly started moving. However, the three were unaware of it. Not far away, a Bugatti Veyron followed closely behind. Chapter 91. Muyaja, who was in the driver's seat, looked ahead and tightened his grip on the steering wheel. As they sped along, the night view flashed past the window. Yin Shirshir really treated Li Hanlin as the principal of her kindergarten, and kept asking him about Yu's situation in school. Principal Li, as a mother, I'm really incompetent. How is Yu's performance in school? Did he cause you any trouble? Li Hanlin maintained a polite smile on his face, but he was about to cry in his heart. It was too difficult to act out this act. He turned his head and looked at Yu helplessly. The little one saw that he was in a difficult position, and couldn't help but snicker. His beautiful eyes curved into crescents, and he looked exceptionally beautiful. Mommy, didn't the principal say that Yu's performance was very good? He stuck out his tongue. In fact, his performance in kindergarten was quite good, especially his popularity in the school. Not only was he smart, but his delicate and handsome face also made him the little male god in the hearts of many little Lolas. The girls who wanted to hold hands with him lined up from the school gate to his classroom door. Even the teacher doted on him. The boys in his class were also very respectful towards him. Along the way, the three of them chatted happily. The Bentley soon stopped in front of the apartment building. At this moment, the night was already a little chilly. Yin Shirshir carried Yu out of the car. The cold wind blew and both mother and son shuddered. Yu buried his head in Yin Shirshir's chest and gave him a look. Li Hanlin immediately came forward and put his coat on them. Before Yin Shirshir could thank him, a beam of high beam shone on the three of them. The beam of high beam was extremely strong, and was accompanied by the low roar of a high-performance sports car's engine. Virum, virum, virum. The sound came one after another. It was as if an angry lion was growling threateningly, glaring at them like a tiger eyeing its prey. It was ready to pounce on them in the next second. Yin Shirshir was a little frightened. She subconsciously pulled Yu into her arms and covered his eyes. The beam of light was so strong that she could not open her eyes. Li Hanlin also covered his face with his hand, and his face gradually became sullen. Damn it, this sports car's headlights must have been modified. They were so strong that they almost blinded people. Just as he was about to explode, the headlights went out. The roar of the sports car's engine also quieted down. Tranquility returned under the night sky. Yin Shirshir was in a trance for a while before her vision finally cleared up. She glared at him angrily. The sports car was parked quietly under a street lamp not far away. It was a silver Bugatti Veyron convertible sports car. With its streamlined lines, it was obvious that it was expensive. However, when she saw the cold-looking man in the driver's seat of the sports car, she felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Muyaja sat in the driver's seat with a gloomy expression. A cigarette that was about to burn out was held between his fingers, and the sparks flickered. The ashes fell on the exquisite steering wheel, as if his eyes were covered with dust. He sat motionless, as handsome as a god. His handsome face, which looked as if it was carved by the gods, was extremely tense at this moment. Especially his deep eyes, which were like an abyss, could not wait to devour the soul of the woman in front of him. There was anger in his eyes, but even he couldn't understand why he was so angry. He, Muyaja, actually lost control because of a woman. Chapter 92. He didn't understand why he had lost control. He only knew that something in his heart had been ruthlessly torn apart. Now he couldn't suppress that anger at all. It was mixed with things that he refused to admit. Desire, jealousy, and unwillingness. He had originally chased after the Bentley. When the car left, he vaguely saw the young, unfamiliar, yet inexplicably familiar face. In his shock, he drove over and happened to see Gu Xingze and Yin Shishir leaving the hotel together. He also happened to see Gu Xingze gently brushing Yin Shishir's hair away from her forehead. They were so intimate. Everyone in the industry knew about Gu Xingze's indifference. On the surface, he looked as gentle as jade, but in reality, he hated being close to female artists in the industry. He had a serious obsession with cleanliness, and didn't like to be too close to people. Could it be that this woman was like those other women, unscrupulous in order to climb up the social ladder? It was only after Yin Shishir got into the Bentley that he found it increasingly difficult to restrain his anger. She really had a husband? She had children? When he thought that she might already have a family of her own, this anger and restlessness seemed to be about to burst out. Along the way, he followed closely behind until the car stopped in front of the apartment building and saw the scene. It was like a warm and harmonious family of three. The heartwarming scene was so heartwarming that it hurt his eyes. Muyaja took a deep puff of his cigarette. His slender fingers crushed the cigarette, but outside the window. He slowly got out of the car and closed the door with a bang. The sudden and heavy sound made Yin Shishir take a step back in shock. In an instant, too many distracting thoughts flashed through her mind. Only one firm thought emerged in her mind. She couldn't let this man take Yu away. Yin Shishir was shocked and scared. She turned around and handed Yu over to Li Hanlin. She raised her head and handed the keys to Yu. She stroked his head and said with trembling lips, Yu, go upstairs and wait for Mommy, okay? Mommy? Yu looked at her with a complicated gaze. She was naturally worried. Good boy, Mommy will come up to accompany Yu soon. Yu, go upstairs first. Good boy. Yu could not help but clench his small hands into fists as he nodded obediently. Yes. Li Hanlin had a complicated look on his face as he carried Yu upstairs. Yin Shishir's thin body shivered in the cold wind. She turned around with a pale face and met the man's cold eyes. Muyaja looked at her coldly. His eyes were probing and cold. They were as sharp as a sword. He stared at her as if he wanted to see through her frail body. Yin Shishir felt uncomfortable under his gaze. It was as if he was going to pierce through her body. You. What do you mean by this? Are you following me? She questioned him, but he remained silent. He only raised his feet and moved closer to her. The aura on his body was too strong. As he approached, it was as if there were countless invisible sharp auras spreading out endlessly, surrounding her body. The man stood in front of her arrogantly. His intimidating height made her seem so weak. She was so weak that she was like a porcelain doll. It was as if he could crush her with a light pinch. What are you doing? She widened her eyes warily. Chapter 93. Before she could defend herself, the man took a big step forward and forced her to the corner of the wall. His tall figure came over and trapped her in the corner. There was no way to escape and no way to retreat. Muyaja bowed his head expressionlessly and easily controlled her in his world. He was as arrogant as an overlord who ruled over the life and death of all things. He pinched her chin and forced her to look up to meet his face. His voice was as tense as a frozen zither string. Who is this man? Yin Shishir was a little stunned. Her silence angered him even more. Who is this man to you? Yin Shishir looked at him in shock. Muyaja frowned and tightened his grip on her chin. In an instant, he hurt her and she cried out softly. Ha! Speak. Yin Shishir was embarrassed and angry. She pushed him hard with both hands, trying to break free from his control. However, there was a huge difference in strength. No matter how much strength she used, the man did not move and forced her even more. Be good. Tell me, who is he? Muyaja leaned in close to her face. Under the dim moonlight, his handsome features came into view. Husband. Yin Shishir's thin lips trembled and she shook her head. Muyaja furrowed his brows slightly, but his thin lips coldly spat out two words that were like ice cubes crashing against each other. Lover. Yin Shishir flew into a rage out of humiliation. She stared at him coldly and gritted her teeth. No, no. Muyaja stared at her, his lips curled into a smile. His slender and cold fingertips rubbed against her lips lightly and heavily. His eyes were cold. Then that child. Yin Shirshir was stunned and her face turned ashen. Her eyelashes trembled violently, and her eyes darted around, not daring to look at him. The man narrowed his handsome eyes. He could see that she was so afraid that her whole body was trembling. It was as if she had a guilty conscience, and was about to be exposed when she was trembling with fear. Why was she so afraid? What exactly was she afraid of? He recalled the scene earlier, and felt that this woman's behavior was so strange and fishy. Yin Shirshir held her breath and lowered her eyes in horror, not daring to look at him. At this moment, her heart was already in turmoil. This man mentioned that child. Could it be that he had already found out about Yu Yu's identity? No. She had hidden it well for the past 6 years. Yin Yeqing had a good personal relationship with the hospital's director, so he had taken care of all matters, no matter how big or small, so there would not be any leaks at all. He wouldn't know. Even if he knew, she wouldn't compromise a single step. Muyaja raised a brow and coldly. Sit. Did I hit the nail on the head? Muyaja smiled. What's the difference between you and those women? You're just trying to climb the social ladder and marry into a rich family, aren't you? He looked at her. His eyes were filled with disappointment, coldness, and some complicated emotions that she could not fathom. In the middle of the night, she went to a banquet and got into a stranger's luxury car in a drunken stupor. And this man was neither her husband nor her lover. Yet he behaved so intimately. She even had a child with her. If he was not an illegitimate child, then what was he? Chapter 94. In the entertainment industry, there were too many women like her, who flirted with men and dreamed of marrying into a wealthy family. She was even willing to pay any price to get married. In the world of fame and fortune, there was no woman who was clean. On the surface, she looked pure and innocent, but after peeling off that beautiful outer layer, she hid an extremely greedy heart. This woman looked pure and innocent, but maybe it was all an illusion. When he thought of how this woman was seductively pleasing other men, Muyaja's gaze turned even colder. Yin Shirshir could feel the terrifying cold air around him. Before she could retreat, the man had already grabbed her waist and pulled her to him. Ah! She exclaimed in shock, and her cherry lips were instantly sealed. Muyaja lowered his head and fiercely sealed her lips with his. His pearly white teeth grazed her lips as he sucked on them tightly and savagely. She had nowhere to retreat. With a loud bang, her back was pressed against the cold wall, and the back of her head hit the wall. Everything in front of her was dazzled. No. You don't want it? Muyaja opened his deep-set eyes. He was craving her beauty. Muyaja lowered his gaze and looked down. From his angle, he could see her slightly open neckline and beautiful curves. The scene in front of him made his heart beat faster. He wanted her. He wanted this woman as if he was possessed. That was the most honest thought in his body. He wanted more, but she pushed him away forcefully. No, don't touch me. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly heard the sound of the window opening upstairs. Immediately after, a basin of cold water poured down and drenched him. The cold water seeped into his collar and slid down his back. The night wind blew, and it was chilling. Muyaja was stunned. Yin Shirshir gasped. The angle of the basin of water was very precise. Not a single drop splashed on her body. She looked at Muyaja anxiously, only to see that his face was as dark as a stormy cloud. He raised his head abruptly and saw the little one leaning against the window on the 3rd floor, looking down at him condescendingly. The night was dark, and it was hard to see the boy's facial features clearly. However, his exquisite silhouette could be seen clearly under the moonlight. He propped up his little head with a devilish smile in the corner of his eyes. His crisp and childish voice slowly said, "It's not good for a man to bully a woman like this, right?" Muyaja's eyes were so dry that he couldn't see the child's face clearly. However, he was surprised to see that the child's facial features were very similar to Xiao Yichen's. Vaguely, they seemed to be carved from the same mold. "We're both men, but I feel ashamed for you. What kind of man are you to bully a woman?" "Umph." With that, Yu called out, "Mommy, don't stoop to his level. Quickly come upstairs. We won't play with him." Yu's soft and adorable voice actually made her feel at ease. Yin Shirshir was stunned for a moment before she hurried upstairs. Yin Tianyu gave Muyaja a deep look before slamming the window shut. Muyaja's brows furrowed slightly. His face was as stiff as ice until the vibration of his phone pulled him back from his thoughts. The call connected, and Yin Tianyo's cold and childish voice came from the other end. Muyaja. Muyaja's eyes glinted with surprise. Yu Yu's voice gradually turned cold. Yin Shirshir is my mommy. She's the woman I'll protect for the rest of my life. I won't allow you to let her suffer even the slightest grievance, much less make her sad. Yu Yu paused for a moment before his voice suddenly turned gloomy. His childish voice seemed to have been frozen in ice as he said, "Who do you think you are? What right do you have to bully my mommy and make her sad? If I see you let my mommy suffer even the slightest bit of grievance, I won't let you off." Yin Tianyu paused for a moment. His eyes softened for a moment before they were filled with complicated emotions. Muyaja, I'm giving you one last chance. Family or enemies? You can choose one. With that, he hung up the phone. Yin Tianyo's eyes drooped. Deep down, he yearned for his father's protection and love. The scene that he saw today was still replaying in his mind. Compared to a strong man, he wanted to have a harbor that could shelter him from the wind and rain. How wonderful would it be to return home and be warm? Even if he was his biological father, he would not allow his mommy to suffer even the slightest bit of grievance. Chapter 95. Even if he was his biological father, he would not allow his mommy to suffer the slightest grievance. Even if he did not want to acknowledge or meet him in this lifetime. Muyaja was stunned. For a moment, he could not regain his senses. Yin Tianyo's few words had clearly stated his stand. His words sounded simple, but there was a hidden meaning behind them. Muyaja was shocked. He was shocked that this child already had extraordinary courage and maturity at such a young age. He was not like a child his age. He was very protective. In front of Yin Shirshir, he pretended to be an obedient and innocent child. On the other hand, he was like an incomparably powerful god, protecting Yin Shirshir in his palm, and not allowing anyone to bully or belittle her. What was even more shocking was, what did his last sentence mean? Family or enemy? Family? Family. For a moment, there were too many strange and confusing thoughts in his mind. This woman had a son who was about 5 or 6 years old, but he was extremely intelligent. Be it his voice, temperament, height, back, or even his facial features, they were the same as Xiao Yichen's. Xiao Yichen was his son, and he was also the child that this woman gave birth to for the Mu family. It was said that a son resembled his mother, while a daughter resembled her father. However, Xiao Yichen's face was carved from the same mold as his. This Yin Tianyu was also 6 years old. Muyaja was a little shocked. It was not that he did not investigate this woman's background, but there was very little information. In fact, there was no mention of this woman's son. Was this son her flesh and blood? If so, who was his father? Recalling Yin Tianyo's warning to him over the phone earlier, which was, choose between family or enemy, he was greatly shocked. Muyaja was suddenly stunned. He suddenly recalled that this woman's pregnancy test report came out that she was pregnant with twins. For a moment, an unbelievable suspicion faintly surfaced in his mind. In the apartment, Yin Shirshir sat in front of the table uneasily, her shoulders trembling. Fear. She regarded this man as her nightmare. She dared not imagine how cruelly he would take the child away from her if he were to find out about Yin Tianyo's identity. No. Yu Yu was all she could rely on. Li Hanlin sat at the side and looked at her quietly. His eyes were filled with pity. Although Yin Shirshir was already 24 years old, her beautiful appearance was still young and beautiful, so much so that Li Hanlin couldn't take his eyes off her. The heavens really cared for this girl, and were never stingy. Li Hanlin was staring at her. Behind him, Yin Tianyu sized him up coldly and cleared his throat. Ahem. Li Hanlin quickly regained his senses, and saw Yin Tianyu place the freshly boiled osmanthus and date-brown sugar water in front of Yin Shirshir. Yin Tianyu cast a sidelong glance at him in disdain, as if saying, "Try and hit on my mommy." Li Hanlin immediately pretended to beg for mercy and mouthed, "Director Yin, please don't misunderstand. How would he dare to have designs on Yin Shirshir? Not to mention the fact that she might not like him, with Yin Tianyu, this protective angel, in the middle. How would he have a chance? Mommy, drink this bowl of brown sugar water and rest early." Yu Yu turned his face, and his eyes regained their tenderness. No matter how cold he was to others, he was always so gentle and considerate in front of his mommy. Knowing that she was not feeling well these few days, he prepared the osmanthus brown sugar water in advance to replenish her blood and energy. Chapter 96. Yin Shirshir glanced at the brown sugar water and was touched. Yu is such a good boy. After drinking the brown sugar water, Yin Shirshir went to bed early. Her heart was in a mess now. She was worried and afraid, but she had nowhere to vent. She had once longed to be kept well, properly placed, and carefully preserved in this life, so that she would not be frightened, suffer, and have no one to rely on. However, that person did not appear even after waiting for 24 years. Yu covered her with the blanket, turned off the lights, and planted a kiss on her forehead. Looking down at the weakness in her eyes, Yu's heart seemed to collapse. Mommy, don't be afraid. No matter what, you just have to remember that Yu will always be by your side, protecting you, and giving you support, okay? Don't let your imagination run wild. Yin Shirshir was shocked to hear this. She stared at him fixedly, and unknowingly, tears welled up in her eyes. Yu, will you really be by mommy's side forever and never leave me? Of course. Yu lay on the bed and suddenly smiled. Mommy, don't think too much. Yu will always be by your side. Yin Shirshir nodded heavily and closed her eyes. Yu closed the door and walked into the study room. He saw Li Hanlin staring at him incredulously as if he had seen a ghost. He said unhappily, Agent Li, what's with that look? Li Hanlin coughed dryly and retracted his gaze awkwardly. Director Yin, I don't think you and your mommy are mother and son. Then what do we look like? Yin Tianyu raised a brow and asked with interest. Li Hanlin solemnly answered, Father and daughter. His brows twitched. Li Hanlin put his palms together and twisted his body. He looked up at the sky and lamented. Ah, I'm so envious. I also want to have a son as smart, obedient and warm as you, President Yin. Yin Tianyu coughed and mercilessly pointed out. I'm afraid you won't have such a chance, Agent Li. Why? Li Hanlin asked sadly. Genes are very important. Yin Tianyu's lips curled mockingly as he gave a concise reply. It meant that in order to give birth to a smart child, the father had to have smart genes. Was he calling him stupid? Li Hanlin was speechless. On the surface, this little demon looked pure and harmless, but his words hit the nail on the head. He was extremely two-faced. President Yin, have you met your biological father? He asked cautiously. No. Yu glanced at him and suddenly said, but he must be a very handsome and outstanding man. Li Hanlin clicked his tongue in wonder. How would you know if you haven't seen it? Yu looked at him like he was an idiot. If he wasn't outstanding enough, how could he have a genius son like me? He hit the nail on the head and was speechless. Li Hanlin could not help but sigh. I didn't expect the most mysterious and honorable director of Luji Holdings to be a 6-year-old child. Won't the other shareholders vomit blood if they find out about this? Vomiting blood won't change the fact. Yin Tianyu sat down elegantly in front of the desk and leaned back lazily. A trace of coldness appeared on his handsome face. I heard that the board of directors isn't very peaceful recently. Yes. A few senior directors have some complaints about you, President Yin. Li Hanlin regained his serious expression and solemnly said this. Luji Holdings board of directors had 5 major shareholders, and they had some say in the board. Yin Tianyu raised a brow. Oh, what did those old good-for-nothings say? Director Zhang doesn't quite understand some of your actions. Li Hanlin paused and looked at Yin Tianyu to observe his expression. Luji Holdings was the world's largest toy supplier. After entering the China market, it sponsored a few well-known children's programs and became famous overnight. However, a while ago, Yin Tianyu secretly instructed them to invest in a teen movie. Chapter 97. His action caused an uproar among the board of directors. It was somewhat unthinkable for a toy brand to invest in a teen movie. Li Hanlin inquired and found out that the upcoming teen movie was The Green Apple, based on a famous novel. It was produced by Huanyu Entertainment, and the director was the famous Lin Fengtian. The male lead Gu Xingze had already been selected. Luji Holdings invested in this movie, and became its biggest investor just because of Yin Tianyu's words. It had to be said that Laji Holdings was filthy rich. Lee Hanlon carefully asked. Director Yun, are you investing in this movie because you want to enter the entertainment industry? Not interested. Yun Tianyu fiddled with the design modules on the table nonchalantly. Then, why did you suddenly invest in this movie? Lee Hanlon was even more perplexed. I'm happy. Yun Tianyu raised a brow, annoyed that he was talking too much. Lee Hanlon shut his mouth resentfully. Yun Tianyu unhurriedly said, there are conditions for me to invest in this movie. The morning sun rose. Yun Shirshir woke up early. Today was a holiday, and the school was closed, so Yu was still sleeping in. Yun Shirshir cleaned her room and packed her clothes when an exquisite invitation letter fell from her pocket. She picked it up and recalled Gu Xing's words. With your talent, it's a waste not to act. Tomorrow is the last day of the female lead audition. I'll be there, too. Yun Shirshir stood rooted to the ground for a long time. As if she had made up her mind, she clenched her fists tightly. Before leaving the house, she specially changed into a clean white dress, a snow-white blouse, and a navy blue pleated skirt. She looked pure and elegant. She had read the script of the novel over and over again. She had already chosen the part of the audition in her heart. Following the feeling that Yin Xiaochuan gave her in the novel, she specially took out the brand of cosmetics she had bought before and put on a fresh and light makeup in a few minutes. Yin Shirshir looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was like a lotus flower, and her face was like a peach blossom. Her pair of bright and beautiful eyes were shining brightly. She had the most obvious vitality and cuteness of a pure and innocent girl. Long and dense eyelashes, pink and translucent lips. Any man could not help but want to kiss her. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. With just a slight smile, her entire face seemed to come alive. It was as if because of this sweet and beautiful smile, the sky outside the window seemed exceptionally clear and beautiful. Yin Shirshir composed herself and went out. When she rushed to Huanyu Tower, she followed the door and found the audition venue in the music building. However, she was stopped by the person in charge of the audition at the door. When the person in charge saw her at first, he could not help but be stunned. It had been 2 days since the audition, but the girl in front of him was the most outstanding one he had ever seen. Seeing that she was about to go in, he quickly stopped her and asked her for the audition letter. She flipped through her bag and was surprised to find that the invitation letter she had put in her bag before she left was gone. Yun Shirshir frowned and said, I left the invitation letter at home. You left such an important thing at home? The person in charge clearly did not believe her, and was certain that she was lying. Are you making up an excuse? A few people said that today. You don't actually have an audition letter, right? Yun Shirshir smiled, but she was neither anxious nor frustrated. I do. Gu Xingzi gave me the audition letter. Chapter 98. That person was even more amused when he heard that. Ha! You're just an unknown college student. Who do you think Superstar Gu is? Don't try to climb up the social ladder. He's in the audition room. You can ask him. The stalemate at the door was suddenly interrupted by a sudden voice. What's the matter? Why are there so many people at the door? Gu Xingzi had just walked out of the audition room when he vaguely heard a strange commotion downstairs. He hurried over, only to see such a scene. Amidst his astonishment, he caught sight of Yun Shirshir, who was blocking the entrance, and exclaimed in surprise, Shirshir, you're here. He walked over to her enthusiastically. Shirshir, you're here? I thought you'd given up. Yun Shirshir was a little unaccustomed to his enthusiasm. Hello. Don't call me that. Just call me Xingzi. The person in charge standing at the side was in a mess. Oh my god. Is this star-studded Gu Xingzi really that lofty superstar from the past? At this moment, the first group of candidates had finished their auditions. A group of gorgeously dressed girls walked out of the classroom. Among them was Yun Na, who had finally gotten the audition opportunity by hook or by crook. Her face, however, was a little strange. A few days ago, Li Dongqiang came looking for her as promised. Li Qin and Yin Yeqing were not at home. Yun Na had locked the door, but the man broke it open and barged in. The moment he entered the room, he grabbed her hair and pulled her into the bedroom. Then, he slapped her so hard that she fell onto the bed. B***tch, you think you're paying me back? Are you ignoring my words? Yun Na was so frightened that she cried, "Brother Chong, I don't have money. I really don't have money." "No money? You're still in the business if you don't have money? The principal is 200,000 yuan, and the interest is 500,000 yuan. Not a cent less." He could not take it anymore and slapped her a few more times to vent his anger. Yun Na covered her swollen face and cried out in grievance, "Didn't I get my sister there? She served you for a night. No matter what, she's worth 500,000 yuan." It was better not to mention this matter. Once it was mentioned, Li Dongqiang exploded. "You still have the nerve to bring this up. I haven't settled the score with you yet. Yun Na, you're playing with me, aren't you? Brother Chong, explain it clearly. Why can't I understand?" Yun Na cried and begged for mercy. Li Dongqiang was flustered and exasperated as he strangled her neck. His eyes were red as he stared at her and fiercely said, "All right, I'll let you know how you died." It turned out that the person who had invited Li Dongqiang away that day was someone from Dishing Financial Group. Dishing Financial Group was the wealthiest family in the capital, backed by the powerful Mu family. Several bodyguards took him to an underground parking lot where there were few people, and taught him a lesson. Li Dongqiang was the local tyrant of the East Street that could not be underestimated. To be able to reach his position, he could be considered a person who had experienced a lot of bloodshed. Therefore, he had a certain level of martial arts. He had even fought in the black market before. However, these bodyguards were legitimate special forces mercenaries who had retired from the war. They were real soldiers who licked the blood on the tip of their swords. One of them could take down 5 Li Dongqiangs. Li Dongqiang was almost beaten to a pulp. Fortunately, he was a tactful person. He knew that he had offended some big shot. He kowtowed and begged for mercy, and only then did he manage to preserve his manhood and not be crippled. When the bodyguards threw him out of the hotel, they clearly told him that he had touched a woman he should not have. Chapter 99. Was the woman he shouldn't touch referring to Yin Shishir? After thinking about it, other than Yin Shishir, he hadn't touched any other woman during this period of time. Li Dongqiang flew into a rage out of humiliation. Yun Na owed him $500,000, including interest. She couldn't pay him back, so she begged for mercy pitifully. Li Dongqiang also thought it was fun. He asked her to find him a pure and innocent woman to repay the debt. He even promised to get her an invitation to the audition. Yun Na then said that she had an elder sister who was extremely beautiful and pure. Hence, Yun Na used some tricks to trick Yin Shishir into coming over. Yun Na wasn't lying. This Yin Shishir, aside from her illegitimate son of unknown origin, was truly an otherworldly beauty. Who would have thought that this woman wasn't simple? She had a financial backer, and it was the powerful Mu family in the capital. If anyone offended the Mu family, it was equivalent to offending all the wealthy families in the capital. Li Dongqiang suffered a double loss. How was he going to survive in the East Street area in the future? The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. In a fit of rage, Li Dongqiang threatened to rape Yun Na. However, when he thought about how this woman still owed him money, he endured it. He didn't expect that Yun Na would be penniless when he came to collect his debt. Li Dongqiang was thoroughly enraged. "You cheap woman. I was having fun in the East Street area, but you ruined it all. I even used my connections to get you that invitation, but you're so shameless." The more Li Dongqiang thought about it, the angrier he became. Now that he had lost both her and his money, the loss outweighed the gain. He, who had lost his mind, immediately beat her up on the small wooden bed in the bedroom and ruthlessly did her. Yun Na was embarrassed and angry. Although it wasn't her first time, she had never experienced such a situation, and was quite frightened. There were screams and cries. Li Dongqiang took out a butterfly knife and pressed it against her throat. He cruelly threatened, "Yun Na, scream again. Try screaming again. Although I, Li Dongqiang, have lost my power, it's still easy to do you." After a series of threats, Yun Na saw that she couldn't break free, and could only obediently submit with tears in her eyes. After being pressed down on the bed and ruthlessly done twice, Li Dongqiang used his phone to record the entire process. However, his anger still hadn't subsided. He called a group of brothers and brought them along to do Yun Na to his heart's content. Li Dongqiang played with her in the most hardcore way to quell his anger. She had intended to use the moves on Yin Shirshir, but instead, she used them on Yin Na. That was it. Yin Na's worth 500,000 yuan? She couldn't be compared to Yin Shirshir. In Li Dongqiang, Yin Na, Yin Yin and Yin Yin, S Yin's TS. In total, Yin Na's clothes were stripped off in 3 hours. Not only was her hair disheveled and her face dirty, she was also forced to pose in several unsightly positions and take many shameful photos. The brothers had a good time. Before leaving, Li Dongqiang took out the phone that recorded those unsightly scenes and coldly threatened, 500,000 yuan. Return it to me with interest when the time comes. If you don't return it, I'll perish together with you. Yin Na was so frightened that her face turned pale. She repeatedly begged for mercy. Li Dongqiang paid no attention to him and swaggered off, leaving behind a mess. Yin Na was mentally and physically exhausted. She collapsed and fainted. When Yin Yeqing returned home, he saw the mess in front of him. When he entered the house, he saw Yin Na naked. Without thinking, he knew what had happened. Flustered and exasperated, he splashed her awake with a bucket of cold water. Chapter 100. Yin Na was ashamed and resentful. She begged for mercy, but her father was not appeased. He even threatened to sever all ties with her. That night, Yin Na kept washing her dirty body, while cursing Yin Shirshir 1,000 times in her heart. Her face was slapped by Li Dongqiang a few times, and was swollen for a few days. On the day of the audition, even a thick layer of foundation could not cover her swollen face. Her originally delicate and pretty face was especially swollen, and her pale complexion was especially unsightly. Without a doubt, how could she pass the audition in such a state? Before the audition started, the director told her to get lost. With her current state, she would only be wasting her spot. Yin Na also saw Yin Shirshir at a glance. She was shocked. Her face turned pale when she recalled Li Dongqiang saying that she had a sugar daddy that she could not afford to offend. This woman actually hooked up with a sugar daddy? How could it be? She was just a commoner in dire straits with Yin Tianyu as a burden. Why would a sugar daddy fancy her? Why was she here? Could it be that Yin Shirshir found out about her framing her that day? Yin Na panicked, but when she realized that Yin Shirshir did not even look at her, she calmed down. She looked left and right and did not make a sound. Crack. The door to the audition hall opened with the sound of the door opening. The second batch of auditions had ended. Some of the ladies who came out had smiles on their faces, while others looked disappointed. It seemed that some were happy while others were sad. The competition in a talent show was so cruel. The person in charge of the audition walked to the door, clapped his hands loudly, and commanded with a loudspeaker. The third group is ready to enter. Gu Xingzi gently patted Yin Shirshir's shoulder. Go on, Yin Shirshir. You can do it. You are the Yin Xiachuan in my heart. Yin Shirshir nodded slightly at his words. The crowd gradually dispersed. Yin Na watched Yin Shirshir enter the audition hall. So she was here for the audition? Who gave her this opportunity? She turned and looked at Gu Xingzi. She looked at Yin Shirshir's gentle gaze. Could it be him? Oh God, Gu Xingzi, who had debuted for 10 years, was the perfect idol in Yin Na's heart. He actually looked at Yin Shirshir with such warm eyes. A broken shoe? It was too unfair. Yin Na stared at Gu Xingzi and Yin Shirshir as they entered the selection venue side by side. Her heart was filled with jealousy and grievance, and her eyes were red. The interview hall was a dance studio surrounded by mirrors. A piano was placed quietly at one side, and the 8 examiners sat in rows on the rostrum. Among them, the first male lead of the Green Apple was Gu Xingzi, as well as the 4 top producers in the entertainment industry. The director of the Green Apple, Lin Fengtian, was also present. However, after 2 auditions, Lin Fengtian was a little tired. Rather than tiredness, it was more like visual fatigue. Gu Xingzi's influence was extremely shocking. Since the start of the audition, thousands of people had signed up for the audition. After a few rounds of screening, there were a few hundred who were good-looking. However, after a few interviews, none of them were to his liking. In the original novel, the female lead, Yin Xiachuan, had thick black hair that reached her waist. On her small face, there was a pair of eyes that were as innocent as the romantic starry sky with many little stars hidden within. Her skin was fair, without any makeup, and looked so delicate that it could be broken by the wind. Her gentle and beautiful eyes were like a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world, fresh and cute. Chapter 101. But after these few auditions, what kind of people were they? Big wavy curls, heavy makeup, thick eyelashes like a stiff brush, and a thick layer of highlights on the bridge of their noses that could blind people. They were either internet celebrities who had plastic surgery or has-been models in the entertainment industry. They didn't have the looks, and they didn't have the temperament. High heels, powdered faces, and suspender dresses. What were these? Did they come from a nightclub? Other than that, the 2 auditions today could be summarized in 6 words. A whole morning of crying scenes. It seemed that these people all knew that crying scenes were the most demanding of acting skills. Therefore, after a whole morning, the people who came in for the audition all chose the most classic crying scenes in the script. Crying. Although crying scenes were the most demanding of acting skills, no matter how good the plot was, if it was repeated over and over again, it would be boring. These girls cried until Lin Fengtian's head was spinning, and he didn't have the mood to act. Lin Fengtian propped up his chin in boredom. The black pencil in his hand spun quickly. He couldn't help but think of the little elf he met at the school gate that day. That girl was the real Yin Xiachuan in his heart. That girl didn't need to act. She just had to stand there, and she looked like a character who walked out of a book. It was all his fault for being muddle-headed. Sigh. The little assistant glanced at the director coldly from the side. He thought that Director Lin was about to get lovesick. Lin Fengtian was frowning bitterly when Yin Shishir pushed open the door and walked in. She was wearing a clean long dress. Her pure and beautiful face seemed to be covered with a thin layer of foundation. Her whole person was lovely and moving. She had a quiet temperament, a gentle smile, and a radiant look in her eyes. It was as if she had walked out of a book. Yin Xiachuan. The examiners were all stunned. When the little assistant saw her, his eyes were wide open. Director Lin. It's her. Under everyone's amazed gazes, Yin Shishir seemed to be a little reserved. Her steps were small and light, and her jet-black waist-length hair covered her entire back, rippling gently with the breeze blowing in from outside the window. She walked to the front of the interview table and raised her head. Her snow-white face was pink, and it was unknown whether she was nervous or not. In her eyes, there was the hesitation and anticipation of stepping onto the stage for the first time as a student. It was as if she was performing for the first time in her life in front of tens of thousands of people in a school auditorium. She looked around nervously and finally saw Gu Xinghe on the rostrum. It was as if a rock had been lifted from her heart. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she slowly said, "Hello. Hello everyone. I'm Yin Xiachuan from Grade 2 Class 1. I'm very honored to be able to step onto this stage." Next. Halfway through her sentence, she was at a loss for words. Like a child who had forgotten her lines on stage for the first time, she looked uneasily at Gu Xinghe. A producer at the side was so shocked that his eyes widened. He thought that the girl was so nervous that she made up her lines. Just as he was about to stop her, Lin Fengtian pressed on his shoulder, and he immediately kept quiet. When Lin Fengtian looked at Yin Shishir again, his eyes were filled with amazement and praise. Chapter 102. The other producers were only in charge of the audition, but Lin Fengtian was the director of this movie. He was already familiar with the script. This girl did not get nervous and misread her lines. Instead, she proved it with her acting skills. This girl was extremely smart. She seemed to have guessed that most of the contestants in the audition would choose the crying scene. All the examiners were already bored. She abandoned the emotional scenes and chose the most beautiful scene in the script. In the script, Yin Xiachuan had been practicing piano with Yin Dongyu in the music classroom since she was young. Piano was the most simple bond between siblings. They were attracted to each other through music, obsessed and falling for each other. Yin Xiachuan liked to stick to Yin Dongyu since she was young. However, she was a little distant from her other classmates, so she never had many friends. It just so happened that the school held an annual talent show in the second year of junior high school. Yin Dongyu signed her up. With her brother's encouragement, Yin Xiachuan went through the preliminary and semifinals and finally stepped onto the highest stage in the school. Yin Xiachuan, who was on the stage for the first time, was young and nervous. Yin Dongyu sat in the first row and encouraged her with all his might. That was the plot, and it was also the most romantic scene in the novel. This girl was quite interesting. Lin Fengtian's eyes lit up. This girl's every frown and smile was so infectious. In front of him, it was as if he was no longer at the audition venue. At this moment, it was as if he was in a huge auditorium. The cheers and applause of the students, as well as the long period of tension and silence when Yin Xiaochuan stepped onto the stage, were suffocating. It was so immersive. How good of a seedling was this? Lin Fengtian turned his head and said excitedly, "Don't you cooperate with her?" Gu Xingze also seemed to understand. With many years of acting experience, he could immediately immerse himself in the role. He suddenly stood up. Just like how Yin Dongyu was nervous about his sister's appearance in the movie, he gazed at her with eager and expectant eyes. Yin Shishir's eyes met his, and after a brief exchange, a shy smile appeared on her face. "Hello everyone, I'm Yin Xiaochuan from Year 2 Class 1. I'm very honored to be able to step onto this beautiful stage. Next, I'll be singing a piano piece, Autumn Whispers." Then, she slowly walked towards the beautiful tripod piano in the music room. She slowly walked past the piano, and the moment her fingertips touched the keys, she pressed a few wrong notes. However, she once again gently stroked the piano keys, as if her nervous soul had finally been released. Her posture was so graceful that she was like a musical fairy. Lin Fengtian suppressed the excitement in his heart. Could it be that this girl could play the piano? Or was the scene going to end here? Just as he was looking forward to it, Yin Shishir's 10 fingers stroked the piano keys, and a romantic piano song, Autumn Whisper, flowed from her fingertips like flowing clouds and flowing water. Smooth and graceful. This piano piece was extremely difficult to play. Not to mention the others. Even Gu Xingze was captivated by this nightingale-like melody. In the drama, Yin Xiaochuan won first place in the talent show with this song, Autumn Whisper. The girl in front of him, sitting by the piano, was as beautiful as an angel who had fallen into the mortal world. After she finished playing a song, she smiled confidently, stood up from the piano stool, and walked to the front of the stage. She calmly accepted the endless applause from the teachers and students of the school. Good. Great. Wonderful. Lin Fengtian was the first to lead the applause. Chapter 103. Yin Xiaochuan. This is the Yin Xiaochuan I've been looking for. She looked exactly the same, as if she had walked out of a book. While Lin Fengtian was pleasantly surprised, he could not help but have some doubts. Was this girl really not from an acting school? She immediately got into character and used her best performance to prove her acting skills. This girl was quite smart, a rare talent in acting. In fact, teen movies did not require acting skills. No matter how hard one cried, it would be boring and the audience would find it boring. Most of the time, youth was a kind of nostalgia and nostalgia for the beauty of youth. Teen movies, on the other hand, used beautiful stories to dig deep into the treasured memories of the audience. Expressing the beauty of youth and stirring emotions at the right moment was the true essence of teen movies. This girl made everyone's eyes light up. Amidst the applause, Gu Xingze could not help but step forward. Just like in that beautiful scene in the movie, Yin Dongyu walked onto the stage and pulled Yin Xiaochuan, who was receiving applause and cheers, into his arms. Good. Wonderful. Wonderful and memorable. Lin Fengtian applauded excitedly. The other producers could not help but nod in approval. Not only Lin Fengtian, but everyone who had experienced the devastation of a morning's crying scene felt that Yin Shishir's performance could be said to be a spring breeze. Oh God, she's so beautiful. I suddenly thought of my first love. An executive director was touched by the scene, and the corners of his eyes were slightly moist. Even Lin Fengtian was greatly surprised. At first, he liked this girl because she was pleasing to the eye and because she had outstanding looks that matched the temperament of the female lead in this movie. Who would have thought that after meeting her today, she would be such a capable actress? However, she was not from an acting school. How could her acting skills be so amazing? This had nothing to do with talent. Some actors did have amazing talent in acting, but this girl was different. From the moment she went on stage, she was in the zone of acting. Her professionalism, superb acting skills, and even perfect positioning. Only someone who had been in the entertainment industry for 10 years could portray such a lively character. No matter what, Lin Fengtian had found another piece of treasure. Yin Shishir's face regained its usual calmness. She slowly took half a step back from Gu Xinghe's embrace. The corners of her lips curled slightly into a graceful and elegant smile. It was neither distant nor intimate. She could get into character as she wished, and she could get out of character as she wished. Who would believe that she wasn't an acting prodigy? Yin Shishir, on the other hand, knew very well that she had indeed suffered a lot in order to have such good acting skills. Her master was the famous veteran actress Mu Yuling. The entertainment industry was full of ups and downs. Mu Yuling did not have a strong background, nor was she sought after. She relied on small supporting roles to hone her acting skills. It was only until an opportunity presented itself that she became famous. She had gone through 10 years of blood and tears to become a double best actress. Mu Yuling had taught her everything she knew. She had come prepared for this audition. Since she wanted to do something, she had to do it well. Gu Xingze looked at Yin Shishir. She had a faint smile on her face and her eyes were bright and gentle. He was amazed by her performance just now. This girl was too amazing. Even he couldn't help but get into character just now. Chapter 104. Until the end of the audition, everyone was still immersed in Yin Shishir's performance. Hence, the rest of the audition was boring. In Lin Fengtian's mind, he already had a female lead candidate in mind. Yin Shishir walked out of the music building. Xiao Shui, who had heard the news, had been waiting at the door for a long time. When she saw her, she quickly went up to her. Shishir, why are you here? Yin Shishir was slightly surprised. After what had happened just now, Xiao Shui still looked a little shaken. I called you and you said that you came for the audition. I was a little worried. What's there to worry about? Are you really here for the audition? Xiao Shui asked anxiously. Yes, I'm here to audition for the female lead of The Green Apple. Xiao Shui's eyes almost popped out when she heard this. What? Why didn't you tell me? Yin Shishir smiled faintly but did not say much. I just decided on the spur of the moment. I just wanted to give it a try for fun. Wow. You're so cool. Shishir, with your words, there should be no problem. You're so good-looking and elegant. I've also read that novel. The moment I saw the female lead, my first reaction was also you. If you're the female lead, the box office will definitely skyrocket. By then, our Shishir will be a celebrity. Xiao Shui said excitedly. Suddenly, she thought of something and said worriedly. But Shishir, I heard from my dad that the entertainment industry is extremely dirty. What are you afraid of? If anyone bullies me, you'll be there to protect me, right? Yin Shishir smiled and bumped her shoulder with a smile. The two of them were about to leave when they were suddenly stopped by someone behind them. Shishir. She turned around and saw Gu Xingze and Lin Fengtian standing behind them. Gu Xingze was dressed in a white shirt and a pair of slim black pants. His simple outfit brought out his pure handsomeness. His appearance immediately alarmed the fan club that had been crouching in the music building for a long time. Although Jinghua University had already made it clear that if the campus learning environment was affected due to chasing stars, it was still unable to curb those fanatical fans. Xingze. Look, it's Xingze. Wow. Xingze is so handsome. Sob sob sob. I can't believe that I actually saw Xingze in person. Am I dreaming? Sob. Mommy, I saw Xingze. Xiao Shui narrowed her eyes and sized up the heavenly king in front of her. She had to admit that she was a little defeated. Some people were born to be idols. Gu Xingze was such a man. A man was more beautiful than a woman. Xiao Shui was shocked. Yin Shishir could not help but feel a headache coming on from the excited voices around her. Gu Xingze, on the other hand, was used to it. He smiled and took 2 steps closer to her. In a low and gentle voice he said, Huanyu Entertainment's annual cocktail party is tomorrow night. Will you be coming? Yin Shishir was stunned. Was he inviting her to the cocktail party? Seeing that she was silent, he slowly said, I want to invite you to be my female companion. Was he joking? He was a popular heavenly king, but he wanted to invite a nobody like her to be his female companion? Chapter 105. I only participated in the audition. The director hasn't decided on the female lead yet. so I'm not considered part of the entertainment industry. Besides, I don't have any background. I really don't understand why you're inviting me to be your partner. Yin Shirsha rejected politely. Xiao Shui was dumbfounded by her rejection. Oh my god, was she stupid? Gu Xingze was such a big star. Inviting her to be his partner was an opportunity that many actresses and actresses in the entertainment industry couldn't get. How could she reject it? Gu Xingze wasn't upset. Instead, he raised his eyebrows slightly. Qin Zhou quickly added, after tomorrow night's cocktail party, there will be a signing ceremony. Yin Shirsha, sign the contract with me. Yin Shirsha finally understood his intention. Gu Xingze had already decided on her. He was planning to use his popularity to pave the way for her to enter the entertainment industry. To put it bluntly, it was nothing more than a publicity stunt. A huge publicity stunt that only Gu Xingze could pull off. The first step he took was to be ambitious. It seemed that he was determined to support her. But why was he so good to her? Yin Shirsha nodded elegantly. Her voice was as clear as spring water. Sure. If that's the case, I'll accept your offer. Lin Fengtian nodded satisfactorily. This girl was unfazed by honor and disgrace. She was calm and collected. Her status in the industry would definitely be everlasting. Let's go, Shirsha, and you're a friend, I'll drive you, Lin Fengtian said. Beside them, Executive Director Mo Qi saw the situation, and his face suddenly flashed with an inexplicable panic. Director Lin Xingze, come over here for a moment. Miss Yin, please excuse me. I have something to discuss with Director Lin and Xingze. He pulled the two of them aside with a smile, and his face immediately darkened. Director Lin, it's not that I have a problem with it, but you've decided on the female lead just like that? Isn't it inappropriate? Gu Xingze smiled but didn't say anything. When Lin Fengtian made the decision to cast Yin Shirsha, the film crew was naturally anxious. The executive directors had all received a lot of benefits. Many popular starlets in this movie had extended an olive branch, but Lin Fengtian did not accept it. All the benefits were given to the other people in charge of the production team. Now that an unknown newcomer had been chosen, there were naturally people who were anxious. Lin Fengtian looked dissatisfied. What? Why wasn't it suitable? You've seen Shirsha's performance with your own eyes. She's a rare genius. Shirsha. They were already calling each other so intimately. Could there be something going on between the two of them? That couldn't be. In his impression, Lin Fengtian was a film addict who was dedicated to making excellent movies. He was different from other directors who were lustful. He had never slept with a woman before. She's still a newcomer. She has no name, no background, and no affinity with the audience. What will the investors of this movie think after you've made the decision? Mo Qi advised earnestly. So what if she's a newcomer? Look at her performance. Whether it's her acting or her appearance, she's so similar to Yin Xiaochuan in the original novel. How can I not be moved by such a person standing in front of me? Lin Fengtian was full of praise. But didn't the investors intend to promote another female artist? Ahem. It's that one, Yin Bingqing. Chapter 106. Yin Bingqing? That carpet star? She's just a pretty face. She's either a white lotus or a naive sweet girl. What good works did he produce throughout the year? Other than acting coquettishly on the red carpet at the film festival, she has nothing but a pretty face and acting talent. Yin Bingqing was an A-list actress who relied on scandals to rise to the top. She was at the height of her fame and popularity. She had a lot of tricks up her sleeves, and had some background. She had a few investors behind her, and was not someone to be trifled with. 10 years ago, the 16-year-old Yin Bingqing acted in a supporting role in a Qing dynasty drama. Although it was a supporting role, she had a lot of screen time. Back then, this Qing dynasty drama was popular all over the country. The main cast members shot to fame and their value skyrocketed. She, on the other hand, was not as famous as the main cast, and was gradually buried. Later, she hooked up with a mysterious investor. This investor found a public relations team for her, and used scandals to hype her up, making her the queen of hot topics. However, Yin Bingqing was a complete flower vase with no acting skills. She had the background, the backing, and the resources. Until now, The only work that mentioned her was the maid in the Qing Dynasty drama from 10 years ago. Last year, she acted in a palace drama and acted as the female lead. She acted as the romantic empress of a generation and turned into a white lotus. Lin Fengtian really didn't like her acting skills. Previously, director Yin wanted to promote a little model with the surname Han. She was dressed in tacky rouge and her face was unrecognizable. What do those investors think my movie is? That they can be in it just because they want to? Emochi broke out in cold sweat, but still shamelessly tried to persuade him. Not far away, Xiaoshui couldn't help but mutter. Sure, what are they talking about? Look at how angry director Lin is. I don't know. Yin Shirshir said as she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure not far away. She looked over and was inwardly shocked. He Lingxiang. He Lingxiang's name was known by everyone in the industry. He was famous not because of the number of popular works he had, but because of the notoriety of his debauched private life. It was rumored that his background was extremely tough, and this man was quite ruthless. There were also rumors that he had a very scary underworld background. Most of the small stars in the entertainment industry did not dare to offend such a person. The newcomers in the industry came one after another. Many female celebrities were willing to sacrifice their chastity in order to become famous. However, none of the female celebrities dared to climb onto He Lingxiang's bed. All of them avoided him. He Ling liked women, but he had a perverted taste in bed. He liked both men and women, and had played with many artists. As far as Yin Shirshir knew, he had taken a few gangster bosses to gang rape a Miss World more than 90 years ago. However, the Miss World had gone crazy overnight, and had contracted a terrible disease. In less than 2 years, she had died of depression. The limelight was suppressed by He Lingxiang. However, most people in the circle were influenced by his evil deeds. If the artist's management company wasn't tough enough, He Lingxiang would be able to play whoever he wanted. Why was he here? Could it be that he was using the audition as an excuse to pick a few young models to play with? He Lingxiang and another producer walked out of the bathroom while talking and laughing. From their proud faces, it seemed that they had gained a lot today. Chapter 107. One of the producers had a dispirited look on his face. After an entire morning of interviews, he seemed to be a little fatigued. Thus, when he saw such a beautiful girl, he naturally felt an itch in his heart. He recklessly sized up the calm girl in front of him and laughed. This girl is quite pretty. What's your name? He Lingxiang also looked at her. It was just that such a good-looking person with such a beautiful and moving face, but her temperament was cold and indifferent. He was already so close to her, but she still did not have the slightest reaction. It was as if she treated their existence as air. It was not an exaggeration to say that she did not see them. Yin Shirshir turned to leave, completely ignoring them. The two of them couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. The producer said, "Hey," but when he saw that she was still indifferent and didn't even look at them, he was instantly angry. He reached out to grab her hand, but she evaded without a trace and turned to leave expressionlessly. She didn't want to have anything to do with He Lingxiang. This man's background was too scary. She didn't want to have anything to do with him. When He Lingxiang saw that, he exclaimed, "Whoa!" He stared at her back view with round eyes and mocked coldly. "Tiesi, this girl has quite a character. She's probably here for the audition. She really doesn't know the rules. She has eyes but can't recognize MT Tai. She doesn't know who is in front of her. She actually dares to act all high and mighty in front of director He." As he said that, the producer turned to look at He Lingxiang. "Am I right, director He?" He Lingxiang ignored him, but he was interested in the delicate girl in front of him. He went forward and grabbed her arm. "Classmate, I'm talking to you. Why are you ignoring me?" "That's right. Little classmate, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." The producer also glared at her from the side. She was a dog that bullied others because of her master's power. Sure, ignore him. One look and you can tell that he's not a good person. Little did he know that this name caused He Lingxiang's eyes to brighten up a little. Sure. He frowned as he repeated the name a few times. Then he grabbed Yin Shirshir's wrist tightly. "This student, I think you have a good temperament and good looks. Why didn't you come to the audition? Who knows, maybe you'll be chosen as the female lead. Yin Shishir faintly said. Thank you for your kindness, Director He. It's just that I admit that my aptitude is mediocre, and I can't enter the eyes of the directors. How could that be? I think you're pretty good. You're much better than those girls who were interviewed before. Even if you don't get chosen, it's not like you don't have a chance. He Lingxiang's tall and strong body leaned towards her suggestively. His voice was a little hoarse. I wonder if you've heard of my name? I'm also a director. As long as you're willing, I can let you be the female lead in my next movie. Yin Shishir was shocked. She took a few steps back to get away from him, but he grabbed her arm and she couldn't move at all. She looked up. Because of her embarrassment, she raised her voice slightly. Let go. What? This classmate, I'm so fond of you. Are you trying to embarrass me? He Lingxiang's gaze was slightly cold. Seeing this, the smile on Xiao Shue's face faded. She walked towards He Lingxiang angrily. Yin Shishir immediately grabbed her arm and persuaded. Xiao Shue, don't. I don't think they're good people. If you go over like this, something will happen.